Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
And I am Tony the Quano.
So, Tony, it's about time that we get into a film franchise that has been around for about 80 years now. A little over 80 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, no, 60 years.
60 years.
60 years. A little over 60 years.
The property has been around for a long time.
Yes, the property's been around for longer than that. But the movies have been around since the 60s, since 1962. But we're not doing a movie from 1962.
No, we're not.
So that series, of course, is James Bond. And there are several James Bond movies that we need to do on this podcast. Eventually. We're not going to do them all right now. But we are going to do one of them. We are going to be doing the movie that is an adaptation of the first of the James Bond books.
Yes, which is why it's appropriate this will be the first one to do.
Yes. And that movie, of course, is Casino Royale, which came out in 2006. It was the first of the Bond movies starring Daniel Craig.
Not the 1967 non-canonical spoof featuring David Niven.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, not that one. The one from 2006, the official Casino Royale. Yeah, the first outing for Daniel Craig, and the movie that turned a lot of naysayers about him into fans of his portrayal of Bond.
Right. Remember, it's easy to kind of forget because it's, when he was cast, that was 20 years ago now, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of people are like, oh, no, he's blonde, and no, he can't be Bond. I mean, he's English, he's not Scottish.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they were looking into other actors that were definitely not even from the Isles, like Hugh Jackman.
Well, he's from an island, not the British Isles, but he's from Australia, which is another island.
But he kind of turned that down because he wanted to focus on other projects at that time. Obviously, he was, in the thick of Wolverine.
Yeah. Which we have discussed him as Wolverine at length on this podcast.
We have.
And we're probably going to be doing it again sometime.
Probably. Yeah. I think one of the Singer X-Men movies needs to be discussed, but that's not what we're doing tonight. We're doing Casino Royale and Daniel Craig.
Yep.
And he was a fantastic Bond.
Oh, yes. Yes, he was.
Which is why I also think it's appropriate we're doing this, because obviously his time for Bond has come to an end with No Time to Die.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at the time, there was some controversy about him being Bond.
A big part of that was just his hair color.
Yes.
It's amazing how many people didn't want him to be Bond just because he's blonde.
Okay, if it's that big of a deal, they have this thing called hair coloring.
Yes. They can dye his hair to whatever color they want it to be. I mean, that's what Marvel did with Chris Evans.
Yes.
Because he's a brunette. He's not a blonde.
But who was another big actor at that time that was also considered was Christian Bale.
Yeah.
And, he's Welsh. So I think he thought it was too English.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, he was right in the thick of Batman.
And then he was about to get Batman. Exactly. So worked out for him, right? Daniel Craig gets to be one of the Bonds, and Christian Bale gets to be a Batman or Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also very appropriate because both movies kind of helped redefine the movie character for those iconic creations. I think it's another aspect of the arc of the Craig Bonds, which had, multiple directors. This one was Martin Campbell. But yeah, it was nice, kind of almost a redefinition.
Yeah.
Even though we talked about it was actually based off the original.
Yeah.
And so it kind of dives into the origin, but then redefines them in a way also for the 21st century.
Yeah, so they made it somewhat like a soft reboot of the series, but at the same time, it can still be worked into the rest of the series.
It can be. Even though following this, it's like he's the one actor that's basically got a full arc within.
Yes. So
set the movie.
So here's a theory that I heard, right, from the fellows over at the James Bonding podcast. So Matt Myra, one of the hosts of that podcast, put out a theory that the timeline of the Bond movies starts with Casino Royale.
All right.
And then goes into Quantum of Solace, because that movie takes place directly after, like within minutes of the end of Casino Royale.
I mean,
is when Quantum of Solace starts.
I love the end of this movie. We'll get to it. And then it's funny because you see Quantum of Solace and just it picks up.
It picks up
even
immediately
the poster of Quantum
after.
of Solace is actually from a scene.
Which
Casino Royale.
Yeah, which is where, like, if you watch Quantum of Solace by itself, it's I would say it's probably one of the weaker of the Bond movies if you watch it by itself. Agree. But If you watch it directly after, like if you watch Casino Royale and then Quantum of Solace, like back to back, it's so much better because it's still the same story continuing through both movies.
Right.
It's like just basically like a 4-hour Bond movie.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because like Casino Royale is like 2.5 hours and then Quantum of Solace is like an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like one 4-hour Bond movie. But yeah, it's so much better if you watch it like that. Like if you watch, Quantum of Solace is so much better if you watch it directly after Casino Royale. Casino Royale doesn't need Quantum of Solace to be really good, but it does improve on both movies if you watch them back to back like that.
Okay.
But anyway, so back to Matt Myra's theory. So the series starts out with Casino Royale and then goes into Quantum of Solace. And then jumps back to Dr. No, goes through all those movies. Then after Die Another Day, picks up...
goes all the way through
Die Another Day. Then picks up with Skyfall.
I can buy that.
And then Spectre and then No Time to Die. Because then that also explains why in Skyfall, he's being called like old timer and he's, he has all this just wear and tear on his body.
That's what I was going to say. He's like Skyfall, right? That's a major setup. I was like, oh yeah, he's like older now. You go to his childhood estates.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of that, and so to fill in the rest of those gaps with everything else from Dr. No to Die Another Day, and Octopussy and Moonraker and Living Daylights, and GoldenEye. It's
so
all right there.
Basically, sure, they make this movie out to be sort of a soft reboot, but at the same time, I really like that theory to where, it's still the same storyline. It's just, this is basically a prequel. The only thing that doesn't quite fit with that, though, is M. Because you have Judi Dench.
Yes.
As right. M starting out in Casino Royale, and she's M in Quantum of Solace also, and in Skyfall, which Skyfall makes sense though because it would be taking place after Die Another Day, where she's M. But so it would mean that Dame Judi Dench. Dame Judi Dench.
Be respectful.
Yes. So Dame Judi Dench would have been M for the first two movies, first full adventure. Then it would have gone to Bernard Lee and all of the other successive M's after him until coming back to Dame Judi Dench for GoldenEye.
Yeah,
so that's the one thing.
Ways you could work around.
Yeah, there's ways that you could work around that. Yeah, I mean, she could have maybe just taken a sabbatical for a few years or something and then come back.
Yeah. Hey.
Or maybe it's two different M's. Maybe Dame Judi Dench just plays two different versions of M. Like maybe it's her and her daughter or something like that.
There you go. I'm good with that.
But yeah, that explains everything that comes up in Skyfall, which we're not going to get too much into that because we don't want to spoil Skyfall.
Yes.
But to where it seems like Bond has been doing this for years.
Right. And obviously he's brand new in Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And it kind of, like you said, it's kind of a soft reboot, but it also gives you the origin of so much that's iconic about the character, which we'll get to. And as much as I love Skyfall, Casino Royale is absolutely my favorite of the Craig series, and it's up there with the entire series.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, Casino Royale,
Goldfinger would be one that would compete with it.
Yeah, Goldfinger,
the Crown
from Russia with Love. That's another great one.
Excuse me. Russia with Love's a great one too.
But yeah, I mean, Casino Royale is up there. It's like it's in like my top 3 Bond movies, if not like it's fighting for that top spot.
Yes, it is. And I like Pierce Brosnan. He made a good Bond, and his series has its moments. Like GoldenEye, which is the same director, Martin Campbell. Mm-hmm. Directed GoldenEye and Casino Royale, but in some ways, GoldenEye's prestige comes from its video game.
Yeah.
Which is one of the greatest video games of all time.
It is one of the greatest video games of all time. It is the video game that started the whole multiplayer thing.
Yes.
So, and the multiplayer in that game was an afterthought.
Yes.
It's just the developers of it just decided to throw it in there and didn't tell anybody until the game came out.
Casino Royale, Mount Rushmore James Bond movies. GoldenEye, Mount Rushmore of video games.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, it's my favorite of the Craigs. Mm-hmm. I hope Skyfall got a lot of love when it came out, but I go back to Casino Royale more often than Skyfall.
Yeah,
nothing against Skyfall and Sam Mendes, but it's about Casino Royale, and it's got everything you want within a Bond movie. But it kind of reinvents a Bond movie as well and brings it to the 21st century.
Yes.
Kind of like Batman Begins did with Batman.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what they wanted to do is like while they were filming it, Batman Begins was popular and they liked what they did with it. And they wanted to kind of recreate that with Bond, Casino Royale. And that's what they did. It's interesting to note, too, because it's a little bit more serious than the previous Bond movies. But then, like, in some ways, they got way too serious with the later Craig movies. And I know looking back at it, I think one of the things I wanted to take seriously was just the aspect of terrorism. And which for this is like, this comes out 5 years after 9/11. So it's far more in the front of minds where it's not as trivial. You need the actual stakes.
Yeah. And where it makes complete sense that they would have an attempted terrorist attack at an airport.
Yes.
In this movie.
And you're going to take seriously a guy that's laundering money for terrorists, essentially. Whereas a bunch of the movies, like, obviously there's stakes, but a lot of it's always been, especially like the Moore movies, very tongue-in-cheek and fun. And
very
the later Brosnan movies got way over the top.
Yeah.
With some of the stuff. But, of course, I mean, the Moore movies have a lot of charm because of that.
Yes, and also because Roger Moore is just charming. Roger Moore is just a bucket of charm.
How old was he when he started?
Oh, he wasn't young. I want to say
he was born in 1927.
Yeah, so he was like...
Let's see, here we go. Live and Let Die was 1973. So, yeah, he would have been 46 when that came out.
Yeah.
And then, his last one came out over a dozen years later.
Yeah.
When he was close, he could have played the old Bond in Skyfall.
He could have. Yeah, he could have played the old Bond in Skyfall. But no, Daniel Craig played the old Bond in Skyfall.
But anyway, all the Bonds have their own charm, and some people have their preferences.
Everybody's got their favorite Bond.
Yeah. There are people that love Timothy Dalton. There's nothing against Timothy Dalton. I love Timothy Dalton. He's much more suave and debonair for the role.
Yeah, it's too bad he didn't get another Bond movie.
Yes.
Because, I mean, he had one really good one, then one that was, not the greatest. So it would have been nice to, give him another chance. But, yeah.
Late 80s Bond, though. Come on, like Robert Davi.
Yeah. It's especially in the 80s. You can't go wrong with Robert Davi. He was in so much then.
He was in Die Hard.
Yeah, he was in Die Hard. He was in Goonies.
And we will be doing the Goonies, by the way.
Yes, we will. Don't know when yet, but we will.
We will. It's going to be coming up soon. We'll see. But yeah, I just remember when it came out, 2006. Did we see this together?
No, we didn't. We watched it together a few times in the apartment, but I saw this one in the theater in 2006 with my brother-in-law. They were visiting. All right. My sister and brother-in-law were visiting. So my brother-in-law and then my other sister. And I'm trying to remember I think a friend of ours was there too, I think. Because I don't think it was just the three of us. And then maybe my brother. But yeah, anyway, there were at least three of us there. All right. But yeah, unless were you there?
I remember seeing it in the theater. I'm trying to remember the circumstance.
Because I want to say there was one other person there with us.
Maybe it might
have been you. I don't know why I wouldn't remember going to a movie with you.
Same. Especially a movie like this. That was this right off the bat. You just knew it was classic.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like right off the bat, you knew this had placed itself on another tier Bond movie.
Yeah.
And there's so many classic things. I'm really excited to dive into it in the specific scenes. But yeah, I'm trying to remember. And I remember even getting the DVD and it had a little Aston Martin car to go with.
Yep, I got that. I had the DBS. Yep, the DVD had the Aston Martin DBS with it.
That was great when they would give you swag with DVDs.
Yeah, that's great. Or this little like Hot Wheels or like a T-shirt or something. A sticker. Something simple like that. Every once in a while you'll find that nowadays, but not nearly as often as you used to.
Yeah. It's a different time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the limited collector's edition of the Batman the Animated Series Blu-ray that I got. It came with little mini Funko Pops of Batman, Joker, and I think Harley Quinn.
All right. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like the idea of that. And then should try to go back to that. Anyhow, so I want to go back to Daniel Craig on this real quick too. Just thinking about it, it's like at this point, I was thinking about it, right? So he'd been in Layer Cake before this. Road to Perdition. Yeah, was probably the first. Actually not the first role that I saw him in, right?
It's also in Tomb Raider.
The first role, I would say that was the first one I really saw him in. But like Road to Perdition is the one that cemented his name to me. Right. Okay. But he was in Tomb Raider, like you said, and then Munich. And when you look back at that, it's like, oh yeah, like obviously he would have been perfect for Bond. Like, okay, who cares about the hair color?
Yeah.
So, plus he was in a Kid in King Arthur's court.
He was in a Kid in King Arthur's court.
So, but yeah, no, what just great casting. I'm glad they went with it and they leaned into it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we'll see who's the next Bond.
I mean, yeah, Craig is definitely so far the most physical Bond.
Oh, yes, unquestionably. And it's perfect because there's a lot of physicality in these movies.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see who else did they consider. Oh, that's right. That's who they also considered was Cara Urban, who was also from the island, New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
The other person was actually serious at the time, and I don't think I knew about it until he was cast as Superman later, was Henry Cavill. But yeah. They thought he was too young.
Which, I mean, he's a big fan cast now for the next Bond.
He's a fan cast now. And again, like they considered it 20 years ago, but at that time he was like 22 and just a little too young. I mean, I get it because it was his first mission.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the other hand, in terms of one of the main villain in it, Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah, which, I mean, this is the movie that introduced me to Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah, same with me. And now, he's mostly a household name.
Yeah. I mean, we have done a Mads Mikkelsen movie before when we did Rogue One.
We did. One of his few non-villainous roles.
Yeah. And then also this had Jeffrey Wright, which was a lot of people's introduction to him. Mine included.
His big mainstream breakthrough. Not Dame Judi Dench's breakthrough.
No.
Obviously.
Not even Dame Judi Dench's breakthrough, like with the Bond movie, because she had been in all of the Pierce Brosnan ones.
Right. No, exactly. And she'd already won an Oscar. She won her Oscar after GoldenEye.
Yeah, but she had been making movies for years.
Yeah, she had. And been on stage and everything else. And so it's also Ava Green, like any movie with Ava Green. So
yeah, any movie with Ava Green is worth watching.
Yes. Even Kingdom of Heaven, especially the director's cut on that one.
Which maybe we should do that sometime. Maybe we should do the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven sometime.
Yeah, that would be a good one to do. Kind of one of the last great Ridley Scott movies. I did American Gangster.
Yeah.
Denzel and Russell Crowe.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's a good setup. We want to get into the movie.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So before we get started, as always, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about this entire movie, beginning, middle, and end. So if you've not seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, then pause the podcast, watch the movie, and come back and listen. If you have seen the movie or you just don't mind being spoiled, and keep on listening, we will be spoiling this entire movie. So you have been warned. So we start out in black and white.
I like the black and white start.
I do too. I love it. So there's a finely dressed looking gentleman walking up to a building.
Yes. And this is in Prague.
Yes, this is in Prague. And he gets into a
Bond movie without a bunch of international locales.
Exactly.
Title cards.
Exactly. So he gets into a glass elevator, like one of those ones that goes up the outside of the building.
Yes.
It's really cool. He goes up to one of the top floors, or at least a floor high up in the building. We don't know exactly what floor he's on.
No, we don't really even know who he is.
No, we don't.
But he's well dressed, and it's black and white.
Mm-hmm. And he walks into an office, and there is a man sitting in the corner.
Who is that man?
That man is Bond. James Bond. But the man who walked into the office doesn't feel like he's a threat.
Yeah, they know each other.
Yeah, they know each other from somewhere. They don't really tell us where, but they know each other. And this man knows that this person sitting across from him is not a 00 agent, because you need 2 kills in order to become a 00 agent in MI6.
And he knows his file.
Yes, he knows his file, and he knows he does not have any kills under his belt. So there's no way that he can be a 00. So he finds no threat in Bond sitting across from him. But
he doesn't know something.
Does not know. What he finds out quickly is that Bond does have a kill under his belt. He did make a kill before coming to this office.
And I like how they cut between the office and then that kill, which is, we have the one scene, which is they got the black and white and it's very sophisticated looking.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get this dirty brawl
in a bathroom.
Dirty bathroom.
Yes. I love it. Like because the realization comes over the guy and he just asks him, how did he die? And I love Bond's response. He just says, not well.
It's a great response.
It is.
And Craig, from the get-go here, from the way he's sitting in the chair and just his kind of terse responses, it's already owning his iteration of Bond.
Yes.
From the outset.
Absolutely. From scene 1 as Bond. Yeah, he's already owning the role. I guess we
forgot to mention, as he got into the office, he went into his safe and it was empty.
Yes, that's right.
And they establish why Bond is there.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is selling secrets from MI6.
Well, Bond's not selling secrets.
Well, not Bond. This
guy in the
other dude
office,
is selling secrets.
The guy in the
yes.
office is selling secrets.
And as Bond says, like, M doesn't care if you make a little bit of money on the side, but it doesn't need to be our secrets. And we find that his name is Dryden, by the way.
Yes,
His name is Dryden. And Dryden
is played by Malcolm Sinclair.
What else has Malcolm Sinclair been in? I had a bunch of these up at one point.
Let's see. Malcolm Sinclair. He was also in V for Vendetta. He played Major Wilson.
That's right. That's the one I remembered when I looked this up, that he was in V for Vendetta, which I had not seen in a very long time.
He was in Andor.
Really?
He was Yularen in Andor.
Okay.
Who was also in, it's not the same actor, but in A New Hope. Yularen is the older gentleman in the Death Star conference room at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, right.
In the white.
Okay.
That is Yularen. So he plays that character in Andor.
Yeah, obviously they would need a different actor for that.
Yeah.
By that point.
Yeah. Just a few years later.
I feel. And since again, one of the great things about Bond movies, as we said, like you get the international locales, and with that, such an international cast as well.
Yes.
And he was, I don't see where he was born, but he's definitely from the UK. He trained with the Royal Shakespeare Company because, of course.
He was born in London.
All right, good. You found it.
He was born in London on June 5th, 1950.
I like how you're not getting any music also. It's waiting for the music.
Yes.
Right? So, as you said, he knows Bond's file, and now he knows there's one kill.
And so, yeah, I love this. Like you were saying, it cuts back and forth between Bond and Dryden, and Bond and this other guy fighting in the bathroom.
Yes.
And do we ever get the other guy's name?
I'm going to look that up as quickly as I can.
I mean, I know they never really say it in the movie, do they?
I don't think so. But they're, like I said, they're fighting in the bathroom. And like Bond at this point, he's not in his trade, like it's a suit or his tux, right? Mm-hmm. He's just kind of in regular street clothes.
Yeah, so while they're fighting, the sink is turned on, like the faucet's on, and the sink is filling with water. And so Bond ends up basically drowning the guy in the sink.
Yeah, he does. Like this, that's what I like about it. For whatever reason, the sink is on, and it's filled up. It's not drained out. And so he just, he
holds his head in there and just drowns him in the sink.
He drowns in a sink.
And then once he goes unconscious, Bond sort of just throws him on the floor.
Yep. His name, the actor is Darwin Shaw.
Okay.
And the character's name apparently is Fisher.
Fisher, okay.
So, and then he drowns and he just drops on the floor, and then it cuts back to Dryden and him talking.
Yeah, and then Dryden reaches into his desk drawer and pulls out his gun and points it at Bond because, he realizes Bond has a kill and Dryden is in line to be his second kill to be able to make 00.
Yep.
And so he pulls the trigger on his gun and nothing happens. It just clicks. And Bond holds up a magazine and he says, "I know where you keep your gun." He holds up a full magazine. And then Bond shoots him.
Well, no, he asked him, like, at the end, it's like, did it make you feel better?
Oh, yeah, true.
The kill.
Yeah, the kill. And
then he doesn't really say anything, and he sees, he looks at Bond's eyes. He's like, oh, well, no worries. The second is.
Yeah, the second is, and then Bond pulls the trigger.
Sentence.
And then Bond finishes the sentence for him.
And Bond agrees that the second kill is easier.
Yes. And then we cut back to that first kill, and Bond is starting to walk out of the bathroom, and the guy on the floor wakes up. And then it goes into the classic James Bond gun barrel sequence.
Yes,
which I love the way they do this.
What a perfect use for this.
For most of the movies, it starts out with it like before the cold open even comes out at all. It starts with and then, some of them, I think one of the Brosnan ones, the gun barrel sequence actually comes at the end of the movie. But it's usually just a separate sequence from the rest of the movie. I love how they integrated it into the scene.
I think given that it's like kind of a reboot into the Bond, and perfect use for it.
Yeah. So, the guy wakes up, raises his gun, and then all of a sudden the camera's inside the barrel of the gun. And you see Bond in the crosshairs, and he just spins around and fires. And then you get the blood dripping down, which I've always wondered, why is the blood dripping down inside the gun? Because the view is from the barrel of the gun. Yeah,
it's from the barrel of the gun.
But
maybe Danny Torrance is in the gun, and he's just having one of his premonitions from Tony.
Maybe he is. That would explain it. I
don't know why Danny is in the barrel of the gun.
Well, Tony is.
Tony is. Yeah, there you go.
Huh. Tony's small enough to live in Danny's mouth, so maybe he's small enough to live inside the barrel of a gun. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Danny then connects into Tony's mind and sees inside the gun.
I think we solved it.
And then he can just view every James Bond movie from inside the barrel of a gun, a Bond's gun.
I think we solved it. Yeah. I like
All right.
it. I like it. Let's go with that.
All right. And then, of course, so now we have that. And then you got to get the next always kind of classic Bond sequence, right? To get the opening credits
Yes.
and the theme.
Yes.
And this one's done terrifically by Chris Cornell.
Yes. I really like this song.
I really like it, too. I was thinking about that watching it. I've always liked it, but
The song is You Know My Name.
Really liked.
Yeah.
I just rewatched the movie recently, for the podcast here for this episode. I thought, I don't think I've ever fully appreciated this song until right now.
Yeah, same here. And I mean, the credit sequence fits with the movie perfectly too.
I always loved the credit sequence with the
with the cards,
the suits
and
of the cards.
Everything's made up of the different suits of the cards.
It's perfect. It's very imaginative, and it's a terrific title sequence. But the song, it's funny. I think it came at a time when obviously this is well after the Soundgarden days for Chris Cornell, and he had tried some solo stuff, and then Audioslave kind of came along, but he was a little bit more of an afterthought by this point, and it was an interesting choice to pick him to do the song, and it just works well.
It does.
And then I think it's actually perfect for how the ending line for this movie. When you really think about it.
It really is.
Because it's introducing the James Bond character, and he should know his name.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, this movie, every movie we get the Bond James Bond, right? And it's usually earlier in the movie, like in the case of like Dr. No, it's Bond's first line is Bond James Bond.
Right.
In this one, it's his last.
Yes.
The last line on the movie.
Right.
It's Bond James Bond. And it fits perfectly there with that. Didn't really think of that.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. And I'm just looking here briefly at the other that it's kind of sandwiched between. I forgot Madonna did Die Another Day.
Yeah, that was a terrible song. That was a horrible theme song.
It's funny how Quantum of Solace uses Jack White and Alicia Keys.
So it's funny because I was saying before that the best way to watch Quantum of Solace is right after Casino Royale. So I actually watched this movie a couple of times, right? So I watched it last weekend for the podcast, and then I watched it again the other day just to get a refresher before we recorded. And the second time that I watched it for the podcast, because I was over at my parents' house watching it, my dad came in and was watching the end of it with me. And after it ended, we went ahead and started Quantum of Solace right after. So, just watching it.
I mean, they seg right into each other.
Yeah, they really do. And so, it makes Quantum of Solace better. It really does when you watch it right after Casino Royale.
I'm sure it does. Absolutely. As as we talked about a little bit ago, he's the one Bond that all the movies are really one arc, essentially.
Yeah.
Skyfall's a little bit different, right there in the middle, but it's still, it treats to his backstory still.
Yeah.
Right? We get a little bit less of some of these guys, but yeah. So I can imagine that it makes it better. And maybe it's a project for one weekend is just to do all the Daniel Craig Bonds back to back to back to back to back.
Yeah. Although, you run into the issue of, after Quantum of Solace, when you get into Skyfall, it seems like there's a huge time jump there.
There's a huge time jump. Yeah, he's a completely different dude.
Which is why I like we were saying before, I like Matt Myra's theory about Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace being the first two Bond movies. And then after that, it jumps back to Dr. No, goes through all of them through Die Another Day, and then picks up again with Skyfall.
Yeah.
I mean, that fits with
it makes sense. It fits.
Everything that Bond is going through in Skyfall. But we're not here to talk about Skyfall today.
No, we're not. We're back to Casino Royale. After the song and the credits, we go to Uganda? Right?
Yes, Uganda. And we get...
It's raining, and we get into these warlords, and they're playing pinball. And then, this guy comes up, and it's Mads Mikkelsen, right? Mm-hmm. He drives up with another dude that's nicely dressed. Mr. White.
Yes, Mr. White. Played by Jesper Christensen.
Jesper Christensen, yes. And Jesper Christensen, he is a Danish actor. Mm-hmm. He was, as we'll get into, he is in several other of the Daniel Craig Bond movies. So I guess you could kind of call it a spoiler. He does not die in this movie.
Well, I mean, he's in two of the other Daniel Craig movies because he's in Quantum of Solace and he's also in Spectre.
Spectre, yeah. He's not in Skyfall or No Time to Die.
No Time to Die, yeah.
In terms of other English language movies he's been in, The Interpreter with Sean Penn and Naomi Watts, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so they pull up and they meet these African guys, Ugandan dudes, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Mads Mikkelsen, his name is Le Chiffre.
Yes. His name is Le Chiffre. And we find out about a particular quirk he has later. Because Bond villains always have to have,
they always have to have a quirk,
some physical quirk.
Yes, there's always some odd things about them because, again, it wouldn't be a true Bond villain without something that's going on. So,
yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious right off the bat that this guy is the villain. So we're not spoiling anything right now. We're not spoiling anything right now by jumping into the fact that he's the villain.
So anyway, Mr. White works for an international organization, which, it's unnamed at this point.
Yes, it's unnamed at this point.
So you could run with that with whatever way you want to run with it. If you're new to Casino Royale or the Bond, or if you're just completely new to James Bond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe you've never seen a James Bond movie at all. Now,
slight spoiler alert for Quantum of Solace. It turns out that this organization he works for is called Quantum. Which is basically their version of Spectre, which they could not use the name Spectre at this point in time when they were making this movie because of all the lawsuits and everything that were going on.
A lot of lawsuits. Eventually, the name Spectre does show up because then they do get the rights.
Yes,
the Spectre. Which, if you're new to James Bond, that is the major kind of criminal organization.
Yes.
That you have in the James Bond universe.
Yes.
So, kind of like if you think about Hydra, if you were just more familiar with the MCU.
Yes.
There's that would be a good parallel to use here.
Yeah, and if you're interested in learning more about the whole James Bond lawsuit, that stems from Thunderball all the way back in the Sean Connery days.
Yeah.
It involves Thunderball and Never Say Never Again, the unofficial James Bond movie.
The unofficial one.
Sean
Connery comes back.
Yeah, Google that. It's a very interesting story about, all the legal stuff that was going on there. But, so at this point, they couldn't use Spectre. So they made up this organization called Quantum, and that is what Mr. White works for.
And they're associated with this these warlords, these Ugandan warlords, right? And they bring in one of their contacts, Mads Mikkelsen, this man named Lashif. And Lashif is basically a money launderer for terrorists.
Yeah.
So they give him what? Like not $1 billion, but hundreds of millions of dollars.
They give him
a very large sum of money.
Yeah, a very large sum of money. And
was it $100 million?
Yeah, there's $100. Yeah, they gave him $100 million. They gave him $100 million.
And just to give a little bit more context here, I found the official name for this group. They're called the Lord's Resistance Army.
Now, for this Ugandan group?
Yes. It actually is a real group terrorist group in Uganda.
Okay.
I shouldn't say terrorist group. They're an extremist group that might use terrorist methods.
Okay.
Would probably be the better way to phrase that. And their leader is Stephen Obano, is the character name.
Okay.
And Stephen Obano, do I have? Oh, here he goes. Isaac Debonkele is the actor, and he is an African actor. He is born in the Ivory Coast. Anyway, Lashif, by the way, it sounds like a French name. He's actually Albanian. The character is Albanian, right? So they entrust $100 million to him, and it's a way to launder the money. But he's gonna invest it so they can actually even get more money, right?
Yes, because that's the whole point in hiring somebody to launder your money. You want them to be able to get you more money.
Yeah. So, his plan, he gets on he calls someone on the phone. What I like about this movie also. All right. So, just thinking about this throughout the movie is there's a lot of cell phones in this movie,
Yes.
which I kind of like because it's 2000. You know what? The movie came out in 2006, so it's being filmed in like 2005, early 2006,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just at that time where the cell phones were in that generation between those original like Nokias.
Yeah.
Which there is a Nokia in this movie.
There is. There is a
And
Nokia in this
a
movie.
smartphone, right? And so, they're a little bit more sophisticated, but they're not quite there yet. So, anyway, so he makes a call, and he has a plan, essentially, that he is going to fund a terrorist to blow up an airplane from this jet company, right? And then that's going to crash the stock, and he can make millions by selling the stock.
Yeah, it's not just any airplane, though. It's the largest,
the world's largest
airplane in the
passenger
world. Yes.
airliner.
Yes.
And right, we don't know quite all these details yet, but they're going to kind of fall into place very shortly.
Yes.
Because now we stay in Africa, but we move from Uganda to Madagascar. We're not talking about the animated movie.
Nope.
We're talking about the same place, obviously.
Yes, there are no penguins and there are no zebras.
Chris Rock does not show up in this movie
that we know of.
And now you have Bond, and then there's this younger agent, right? And they're kind of talking to each other.
Well, first, when it cuts to Madagascar, we have people betting on a cobra.
A cobra, and it's fighting what?
It's
like
fighting a
possum or not
it's,
possum?
It's fighting a ferret.
Ferret. That's what.
Yeah,
yes.
It's fighting a ferret.
How appropriate is that?
Exactly.
We just had a movie with a ferret.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a ferret.
If it bites you get rabies and you die.
What's a ferret? This is a ferret.
If you had not listened to our Kindergarten Cop episode, you can go back and listen to our Kindergarten Cop episode.
Yes, that episode was a lot of fun to
it was a lot of fun to talk about. Yes. So anyway, so yeah, it's kind of a classic scene where you're kind of where you have a bunch of a circle, and there's a bunch of people, and they're ready to they're putting money down or whatever, and there's this cobra, and there's this ferret, and they're gonna see if the who's gonna win. So it's funny. I had more of a distinct memory of the cobra eating the ferret, which doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen.
It's like this Mandela effect. It's something like my own personal Mandela effect.
Yeah.
That I could have sworn that every time I watch this movie, the cobra eats the ferret.
Mm-hmm.
But the cobra does not eat the ferret.
Yeah. And yeah, it doesn't. It never actually shows the outcome of the fight.
It does not.
Because Bond is he's standing up like in a tower, like an observatory area, like a balcony type thing.
Yes.
Watching over the crowd. And another less seasoned agent is in the crowd watching this guy who looks like he's got burns all over his face and whatnot. And so the guy has a phone and he gets a text. This guy that they're watching. And he
we see his phone and it says ellipsis.
Yes. And so the agent that's down there, he's holding his hand up to his ear talking to Bond, and Bond keeps telling him, take your hand off your ear.
Yeah. And the character's name is Carter, played by Joseph Milson.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he's like, you're going to give this away, right?
And before he can take his hand off his ear, the guy that they're watching, the guy that they're keeping an eye on,
he looks up and he sees the guy, like the hand in his ear, and he sees a little earpiece in there.
It's Molaka. He's played by Sebastian Faucon.
And we're going to get into this guy. Like he's
yes.
cast very specifically for a very good reason.
Yes, he is. So, yeah, he sees the guy. He sees Carter with his hand up to his ear, and he knows he's an agent. So, he runs.
Yeah,
and
that's right. Yeah.
So then Bond chases him.
So I'm just gonna put this out there. One of the nice things, like the opening credits are like the big credits, right? They're old fashioned, where it's gonna be like the old fashioned credits where you throw the whole cast and everything.
Yeah.
He's also Sebastian Faucon is actually credited for free running stunts.
Yes.
In the opening credits.
And this whole sequence. So he goes in this whole parkour free running sequence.
I love this
movie.
sequence because he's so fleet and footed, right?
Yeah.
And he does parkour.
He not only does parkour, he's one of the creators of parkour.
He's like he's one of the creators of parkour. And it's funny to watch it because like first it's kind of running, and he's just he's just jumping over like fences and all these things very easily, and
and then he starts doing the fancier stuff.
Run through the fence.
Oh, Bond is running up. He's trying to keep up with him, but
he's trying to keep up. Yes, he's doing a good job.
Yeah, he's doing a good job of keeping up. But
meanwhile, Parker, he kind of falls into the fight with the ferret.
Yeah, Carter falls into the fight with the ferret and the cobra, and we don't really see much of Carter after this.
We don't,
because the focus
is
all on
Quantum
Bond.
Solace video game. But that's all. The only other thing I know about him. Anyway, but they end up running to this construction site, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have a good bit of this. It's a skyscraper, right?
Yeah.
Of it built. They have a good bit of it built, right? And there's two massive cranes that are there here at this construction site.
Yeah, and they got cables coming down.
He's climbing up.
Yeah, and so he's climbing up the cable onto this crane, and so Bond, gets on the load that's on the crane, and he rather than trying to climb the cable behind Molaka, he just hits the release on it, drops the load, and the cable goes flying up to the top, and he's just riding it up. So he gets up there shortly after Molaka does. They climb up on the crane.
They face off briefly, and Molaka has a gun.
Yeah, I love this. Molaka has a gun, but it's out of ammo. He tries to shoot Bond. It's out of ammo, so he throws it at Bond. Bond catches the gun and throws it back at him. So they're fighting on this crane a little bit, and then Molaka sees an opportunity to jump down to a lower portion of the skyscraper they're building.
Yes. So
he jumps off of there, and then Bond follows, but not as gracefully. And then they're just running through the construction site. Like they're running through the building that they're building. Right?
Yeah. And there's workers actively on the building.
Yeah.
Right. And it's both, they don't have the floors in there yet. Right.
No, it's essentially the steel skeleton of the building.
Yeah.
That's mostly up. And then they're working on some of the floors.
They got guys up there. They're riveting up there. And, right.
So they're running through this building, and there's a wall with like a window up at the top of it.
That's right.
And so Molaka jumps up, squeezes through that window to get away from Bond, and instead of doing the same thing, Bond just runs through the drywall. He just busts through the wall, Kool-Aid Man style.
That's the note I had. Through drywall. Kool-Aid!
Oh, yeah.
And Bond's not phased. Daniel Craig, he just keeps going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's determined. In some ways, it's almost kind of like John McClane, right?
Yeah.
He's looking like almost everyman-ish in some ways, and he's just he's taking a beating. He keeps going.
Yep.
He's not deterred.
Nope. So finally, Malaka gets to the embassy.
Right. So when they get down, like they call some type of an explosion there at the construction site too.
Yes.
I forget what they hit there, but right, and you get like the workers scattering, right? And
yeah.
So he keeps going, and he gets to an embassy, right? It's a fictional country that the embassy is.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see if I get the actual name for this. Let's see. It is not. I don't have it here in the Wikipedia notes, sadly. But so now they're having a chase through the embassy, which obviously is problematic, right?
Yeah. So
because once he's on embassy grounds, and he'll be okay. And so Bond, Bond first he hops on like a truck and jumps over the embassy walls.
Yes.
Right. He obviously he can't just walk up to there. He walked up to the gate.
Of course he can't.
Of
course he can't.
Like why you want here? Why you want to be here? Right. And you got important embassy officials and just office workers, and everyone's starting to scatter because Bond's trying to find this guy in the embassy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he finds him, right? And it's okay. The entire thing is I always thought about as this is going on, I was like, diplomatic immunity.
Diplomatic immunity has just been revoked.
Anyhow, so he's finally able to capture him, and you get the I don't know if it's technically the ambassador or it might be the consulate there. Anyway,
yeah.
So and he's like, what are you doing? Right?
Some guy of importance.
They have all the gourds there. All the gourds.
Yes, they got some pumpkins. They got some squash.
They're guards.
Guarding the gourds.
These are precious pumpkins. They're gonna enter them in to the county fair.
Yes, they have the world's largest pumpkin. It's the size of James Bond's ego.
Oh, there you go. So, he I love it. But he just the guy's like, oh, what are you doing? Right? They got all the guns all aimed at Bond, and he pushes him back over to the guys there, right? The guards and the consulate, the guy of importance.
Yeah.
Where are we going here?
Well, first, Malaka was able to get in there and get a gun from the desk.
Oh, that's right. He did get a gun.
So Bond took the gun from him. And that's when the gentleman of importance comes in with his guards. And so Bond is holding the guy at gunpoint. He's holding Malaka at gunpoint.
Yeah, and then he kind of puts the gun back up and pushes him over towards across the courtyard, like he's going to let him go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he just shoots him.
Yeah. He shoots him, and then when all the guards have their guns trained on Bond sees some propane tanks in the corner, and he shoots one of those.
Because, of course, there's propane tanks.
Yes, of course. There's always propane tanks when you need a propane tank in a movie, when you need an explosion. So he shoots the propane tank, and it explodes, and it gives him the distraction he needs to escape.
That's right. But he's also still able to get Mulaka's phone.
Yes.
Right? Because that's what's most important is what's on the phone. As we get to. So obviously, though, this is an issue because he just made a mess, caused an explosion, and killed a man on embassy grounds.
Yes. So M, played by Dame Judi Dench, is very cross with him.
Hey, she had to appear before Parliament, and she got a talking to in Parliament. So she's quite cross.
Yes. And, she comments on how, he just killed Mulaka, and Bond's like, well, I thought you wouldn't mind having one less Bond maker in the world.
He just says it so dryly. I love it.
Yeah. And she's like, it's not that there's one less bomb maker. It's that we were going to use him to get to his compatriots.
Yes.
To get to the larger terrorist group.
And so she basically dismisses him, right? You know, it's like, yeah, no, this is not how we do things. I had a thought about this because I don't know. Anyway, so
yeah. So then we have, is this when it cuts to Bond on the computer?
Yeah, he sneaks into Bond, her.
Well, we don't know where he is yet. We just know he's on a computer.
That's true. Yes,
and he's looking up these different individuals that are associated with this bomb maker, with Mulaka. And
he sees the name Lashif.
He sees the name Lashif.
And he's okay. He seems surprised to see that name.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He knows who Lashif is. So it's obvious that Lashif's on MI6 radar.
Yes. And then M walks in. And we realize that Bond has broken into her home.
Now she's very cross.
Yes. You thought she was cross before. Now she's very cross. So, yeah, this is one of two times in the entire Bond series that we actually see M's home. Like one of two movies,
like that, yeah.
One of two movies in the entire series, because they show it like twice in this movie, but then there's I want to say Skyfall it's shown again.
That sounds right to me. Right,
but before this, we had never seen M's house or M's apartment.
That reminds me. Also, one of the reasons why she's cross is like this is seems like it's one of his first assignments actually as a 00. Also,
yeah.
She's like, I give him 00, and then he causes this international mess. Excuse me.
Yeah. So,
but before he leaves, as he's leaving, she's like, "Don't ever break into my house again." Right? Which I kind of want to see what would happen. Like, what would Dame Judi Dench do? Like,
she would kill him on the spot. If anybody could do it, Dame Judi Dench could.
Yeah. Like, I'm not sure how she would do it, but she would do it. She'd be able to kill Chuck Norris. I know that.
Yeah. Oh, and while she's talking to him, before she dismisses him from her home, then he mentions, I thought M was just a code name. I didn't know it stood for, and then she cuts him off.
It's just like, yeah, I thought it was just randomly assigned.
Yeah, I thought M was just a randomly assigned code name.
it's like, utter another syllable, I will have you killed. But he's also gotten other information. So I mean, he was also using the MI6's all the computers to triangulate where the message came from.
Yes,
that ellipsis message.
Yes, and he saw that it came from the Bahamas, from Nassau, Bahamas.
Now, I'm not sure if this is the scene that happens next or if it happened before this. We do have another scene with Lashif where he's on a big
I think
yacht.
it was just before this. I think it was just before. Yeah, I think it was after the whole everything in Madagascar, but before M's house.
Before we're back in London. Right?
So yeah, so Lashif is on a yacht playing Texas Hold'em poker with a guy
and a chick.
Yes, and this is when we find out about his physical quirk. So he's got his cards in his hand, and
by the way, he's playing with the lady is Madame Wu, who shows up later in the movie.
Yes,
and she's an elderly Chinese lady. If you have not caught on to that, anyway, go on.
So, and she's played by Tsai Shin. And so he starts crying blood. Blood starts dripping down out of his eye like a tear. And so he, picks up a handkerchief and he wipes his eye and he's like, it's because of a derangement in the tear duct. Don't worry, it's nothing sinister.
Right, yes. By itself, it might not be sinister. It's not a good omen.
No. Dude, you're playing cards with a dude and he starts crying blood. I mean, that's probably something to worry about.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, so he goes all in on his hand. He says, I only have 2 pair. Right? And he says, but you only have a certain chance of making your straight.
Mm-hmm. Like a 16.2% chance or something like that.
Yeah. And so he gets all the chips. He's won. And then I noticed this. So because, it's this movie heavily focuses on poker.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the original book, it was Baccarat.
Yes, that's correct.
But they wanted to update it because in 2006, Texas Hold'em poker was very, very popular.
Very
popular. They decided to update it because, Baccarat's not as well known.
By that point.
Yeah.
Yes. Excuse me. So he has a henchman there. And so we recently did another movie with poker, right? The Sting.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Not Flee.
Yep.
We had Not Flee.
Yep.
But Lashif's bodyguard here reminded me a lot of kind of like an imitation Not Flee.
Okay.
He doesn't look like Flea.
Yeah.
But he's there in the background.
I could see it.
He talks with him. That's it. Doesn't really have lines.
Yep.
His name is Krat, by the way. That is the character name. Is Krat. So Krat is played. Do I have his name right here? I do not have his name immediately at hand. That's not important, I guess. I mean, maybe it is important. He did act in this movie. He has a family that cares about him. Clemens Schick plays his bodyguard here.
Yes, Clement.
He was also in the Point Break remake back in 2015.
All right.
So,
wonder if he was also in the Red Dawn remake. Don't know if he was, but I wonder if he was because Chris Hemsworth was in both. He played Swayze in both, so why couldn't Why couldn't Clement Schick play the same character in both? Or the same?
That's a good point.
I mean, was there an actor that was in both of the original ones? Other than Swayze?
I don't think so.
Because Clement Schick could have played that guy.
You can also listen to our Point Break episode. The original Point Break with Tim Robinson. Yes. So they're talking. They're looking at a laptop and the CNN, and he sees that, you know, his guy that's just got killed by Bond at the embassy in Madagascar can no longer carry through with his plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so he asks him, "Oh, well, you know, when does ellipsis, expire?" Right, that's the code,
yes.
Right? That
the code
kind of gets sent out, and it's like 36
we
hours.
Don't know what ellipsis is for yet. We don't know what it's a code for. We just know that people are being sent this word ellipsis.
So he's told 36 hours. It's like, that's enough time to do what I need. And then that he's like, tell my guests it's time to leave, or throw him off the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Very hospitable.
Yes, very, very.
Like, how do they know him? I want to know, like, what's their connection with him?
Yeah.
And did they get through? Well, I mean, Madame Wu, we see later. I guess she could have been thrown off the boat. It's not like it's in deep water.
True. But my guess is they probably just asked them to leave and they left, and they didn't have to throw anybody off the boat.
Well, he just wept blood.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's crying blood in front of you. You're going to want to get out of there. So I'm guessing nobody argued with the whole request to get off the boat thing.
Anyway, so yeah, then we get the scene back in London. And then after London, then we cut to Bond going down to the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to find the exact location, because he has the coordinates of where this text was sent from.
Yes. And although when he gets to the resort, when he gets to the hotel there, then there's a guy who's driving a 1964 Aston Martin DB5.
Yes. Even before that, he gets to the hotel, the airport, and he's driving like a Ford.
Yeah.
That's Rental.
Right. Yeah.
And he just drives.
Yeah, he's driving. Yeah, he's driving a Ford. Not any sort of car that you would imagine James Bond driving.
No, not at all.
Just a regular Ford sedan.
The valet comes out. They take his car.
Mm-hmm.
They park it. Right? And then he goes to tie his shoes. He's looking around. You can tell he's trying to scope out.
Yep.
Did he see that he's looking at different cameras, which is what he wants?
Yeah.
And that's when the Aston Martin shows up, right?
Yeah, 1964 Aston Martin DB5, the same car, yes. The first of the Bond cars.
The first of the Bond
cars, the one that was introduced in Goldfinger in 1964, driven by Sean Connery, but in this movie it was not driven by Sean Connery. This movie it was driven by Alex Dimitrios, played by Simon Abkarian. And so Bond's keeping an eye on him, and then as he's standing up, this guy driving a Land Rover, a Range Rover, starts berating him. Tells him to get over here.
How come we got my car already?
Yeah.
Throws him the keys.
He thinks that Bond is the valet. So, so Bond agrees.
Bond uses this as advantage.
He does. Actually. He very much does. So, he apologizes, takes the keys, and gets in the guy's Range Rover and drives around to the parking lot and uses it to cause a distraction.
Yeah, he basically backs in to the space, but then into the car behind it.
He backs a little too far and hits the car behind it. And then as all the car alarms are going off, he gets out of the car.
All the security and valet guys.
And he kind of just strolls past security and everybody's running over to see what happened.
And so he just, Bond, just very politely, just strolls around like he belongs there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And essentially just goes straight into one of the security offices where they have all the closed circuit television.
Yeah.
And they have the, at this point, right? This wouldn't be digitally recorded, right? They still have,
at this point it would still be
on hard copies.
On hard copies, yeah. I mean, they'd probably have DVDs at this point instead of like VHS tapes.
Yes.
But because it was 06. But yeah, it probably wouldn't all be digital, like all on a hard
the guy with
somewhere.
the Land Rover, I'm looking for his name. I can't find it because the script has him listed as Fat German. But looking at IMDb, I cannot see anyone listed as Fat German. There is Disapproving Man.
There is Disapproving Man.
But I don't see a Fat German listed. And looking at the actor that plays Disapproving Man, that could be him, maybe. A little bit young. Anyhow, so yeah, he goes around and he looks for the timestamp on it, and now he finds the copy of the, when it was, right? When this the exact location and the time, right?
Oh, and by the way, the embassy before was for the country of Nambutu.
Nambutu.
All
right. Interesting.
Yes.
So he goes around and he finds it, and then he finds the exact time at that spot there. It's the front of the hotel, right? Where, excuse me, where you drop off your car, and he finds the time, he pauses it, and he sees who it is, and it's Demetrius, and you see his Aston Martin, as we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So then he goes in, he goes into the check, he goes into the front, the lobby.
Yeah, to the concierge.
He wants to check in. He wants to check in,
and
like, I don't have a reservation, but they have a villa.
They have an ocean view villa. He's like, that'll do.
That'll do.
And hands her his credit card.
Must be so nice just to have.
Yeah.
Basically have like an Amex Black.
Yeah.
Just to do.
Yeah.
That's the perks of being that type of agent, I guess.
Yep, indeed.
And he asked the nice lady there, like, oh, well, who owns, it's all this. I nicked,
it's really nice.
Someone's
64 Aston Martin. I'm embarrassed to say that I parked next to him and I sort of nicked it with my door. And
it's like, oh, that's Mr. Demetrius.
Yes. And if he hasn't noticed yet, then you might not want to tell him. Yeah.
But what if I insisted?
Yeah. But he's like, but what if I just felt compelled to confess?
Compelled.
So she tells him where to find him. She says he has a house just down the road, just down the beach.
Yep. I love it. After that, the next scene is like another classic Bond movie, because there's not a James Bond movie if you don't have him emerging from water and his pectorals just.
So see, this is a callback to Dr. No.
Yes,
when you had Bond laying on the beach and Ursula Andress comes out of the water.
Yeah,
in her bikini,
yeah,
throwing her hair everywhere, her wet hair everywhere. But yeah,
Daniel Craig does not have quite the locks.
No, he doesn't. But he's got the physique to be sporting the tiny little powder blue swim trunks that he's wearing.
That he does.
So he comes out of the water, and
he sees someone on the beach, though. That is attractive lady on the beach.
Yes.
We don't know at this point, but obviously when this happens in a Bond movie, you're like, okay, well, she's gonna be one of these girls. She's probably gonna die.
And it turns out she is Solange, played by Caterina Marino. Now we don't know who Solange is yet. We just know that this beautiful woman that he saw on the beach. And so then,
by the way, this is just backing up briefly. I would need to rewatch this, again when Skyfall. That is when we see M's house again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, excuse me. Apparently, Bond breaks into her house in Skyfall also.
Yeah, I mean, Bond is never just invited. She doesn't just invite him over for tea.
Oh, boy. That's true. Yes. Excuse me. Yeah, Katerina Marino. What else was she in?
Let's see.
No, well, nothing immediately if you're for American audiences.
Yeah, Katerina Marino was
but as the name implies, she's Italian.
A lot of Italian stuff.
Also a model. Yeah, I think it's really more of her thing. She's a model. Like she did MasterCard commercials, Mercedes-Benz, Nescafe. She took 4th place in the Miss Italy contest in 1996.
She was in James Bond 007 for Women 2 fragrance television commercial. Playing Bond woman.
So it cuts into the night, and now we're in the lounge area there at the resort.
Mm-hmm.
There's a poker game.
There's a poker game going on. And Demetrius is part of this game.
So Bond joins the game.
And Solange comes to talk to Demetrius, and he tells her that she's late. To wish him good luck. And he tells her that she's 2 hours late on that. And so he sends her off to the bar. Very rudely. And Bond sees this. And he goes and sits down at the table, and
I'm sorry. I gotta interject before we do this. I forgot. I thought that this scene is right before this one. It's when M gets a call.
Yes,
it's at night in London.
That's right. M gets a call.
So we get to see M in her jammies.
Yes, with her husband. Because they're in bed.
She's got her bedside table.
It has a flip open computer. Yeah.
She hits a button and
it's like a concealed computer just rotates up. It's great.
And her assistant, Villiers, says "Oh yeah, we found Bond. Right? He's in the Grand Bahamas,
and
right?
he's accessing the files
with holiday plans."
No, we woke you up because he's accessing the files with your login.
She's like, "What? How does he know? How the hell does he know? He's a spy.
Yeah,
of course he's gonna know.
Yeah,
why wouldn't he know?" And then she sees what he's been accessing, and she sees Lashif, right?
Yes.
So, that gets her okay, well, what's he up to here? By the way, he's played by Tobias Menzies, who was in The Crown.
Mm-hmm.
Plays King Philip in The Crown, actually. So, right. So then we get cut the game, and Bond's like, "Oh, can I join in?" Right. And they allow him to join in. He, cashes in, gets his chips.
Yep. And then, we don't know how long they've been playing because it kind of skips forward a little bit.
It doesn't.
But it gets
Bond
the point.
Wins some, and Demetrius, he's not too happy because he's quickly running out of chips.
Yes, he's quickly running out of chips. So he's got to meet Bond's bet. And so he pulls out his wallet to, get a few $1,000 more on the table, and the dealer stops him and says, "No, table bets only."
Before that happens, Solange finally comes over, And he's like, "Oh, if that was for luck, you're 2 hours late."
Yeah.
So now
She kisses
we get
him.
the connection.
And yeah.
She kisses him. And then it's like he decides to put the keys on the table. And the dealer's like, no. No.
Well, he has his car key sitting on the table, or his keychain.
Yes.
Sitting on the table, and he pulls out his wallet, and he's trying to go through his wallet to get cash out, and the dealer's like, nope, table bets only. And so he sees his keychain sitting on the table. He picks it up. He's like, this is my car. It's on the table. So that's how I'm meeting your bet.
Yeah.
And Bond wins.
And at first the dealer was going to say no, but Bond's like, no, it's all right.
Give him a chance to win his money back.
And, Demetrius has a pair of kings. And then the dealer has a king on there. So it's 3 kings, right?
Yep. 3 kings.
But Bond has 3 aces.
Yeah, Bond has 2 aces.
Plus the ace
on the table, which is trip aces, and Bond wins.
And then so he takes the chips, then he takes the keychain. So he looks at it, he's like, the valet ticket?
And the valet ticket. So yeah. Demetrius reluctantly reaches in his pocket and pulls out the valet ticket and tosses it to him.
Good for Demetrius.
Yeah.
If that was Robert Shaw would have been very different.
Yes.
So, and then not Flea would have had to do something about it.
But yeah, it's very commendable of Demetrius right now. I mean, he's not a very commendable guy, but right now this is very commendable of him.
He's an honest thief.
Yeah, he realizes he lost fair and square.
Well, he might not be a thief, but he's honest.
Gives up his 1964 Aston Martin DB5 because he was dumb enough to bet it on a poker game.
Yep.
So now Bond has his Millennium Falcon.
That's right. And so, meanwhile, Solange has no idea that Demetrius is lost. Right. So, they're in the circle, right at the curb. Mm-hmm. The valet pulls up, and she opens the passenger door. Bond opens the driver's side door and realizes that that's why he's in a bad mood. He just
lost his car. Guess she realizes what happened right away as soon as Bond sits in there. She doesn't ask him, what he's doing in the car. She realizes that Demetrius bet his car and lost.
So she's just kind of there. What am I going to go home to? And Bond's like, "Can I give you a lift home?"
Yeah.
And she's just like, "That would really."
Yeah, she's like, "Well, how about no?" He's like, "How about I give you a lift to my place?"
She's like, "Okay."
And she's like,
so
okay. He just drives around the circle and pulls right back up to the door. He's like, "Here we are."
The valet comes back out. He's like, "Welcome back."
So they go into Bond's room. And, he's James Bond. And this is a Bond girl. A secondary Bond girl. So yes. You can guess what happened. Secondary. You can guess what happened.
They eat caviar.
And drank champagne.
That's all they did, right?
No, there was probably some emotional catharsis involved, too.
You sure about that?
Maybe. I mean, when they're in the room, we see them laying down on the floor together.
Is that how everyone eats caviar and
yes,
drink champagne?
Everybody eats caviar and drinks champagne while laying on the floor on top of each other. Still both fully clothed.
Yeah, okay. Meanwhile, Demetrius gets dropped off at the chief's yacht.
Because he doesn't have his car anymore.
And then the chief's lady there, her name is Vilenka.
Yes, played by Ivana Milicevic, who has been in several notable things. She was in an episode of Chuck, if you're a fan of that show.
Yes.
Which we both are. She was in the show Strike Back.
Okay.
She was in an episode of Gotham. She was in Banshee. Yeah, she's done a lot of TV work.
Excuse me. All right. So, yeah, she's basically the chief's lady. And then Demetrius and the chief get to talking, and the chief's is like, not the chief. Demetrius is like, this is not my fault. I just gave you the guy. Right? It's like, I'm not, it's like, this is your plan. Like, I don't know why you can really, like, blame me for this. And then the chief is like, well, this guy was under the supervision of the British Secret Service. So why should I trust you? Right? And Demetrius like, no, don't play tough. Like, if you're gonna kill me, you want to be talking so much, right? Like, I got someone else that's willing to do the job. He needs some particulars and payment, right?
Yeah.
And the chief, so they agree upon it, and then so we get the sense that Demetrius is going to find someone else that
he can send the ellipsis code
bomb. To. Yeah, and the ellipsis code too, right? So we cut back, and there's more things going on in that hotel room.
Mm-hmm. And Solange is worried that she's going to have to leave Bond soon. And then she gets a call from Demetrius saying that he's not going to be home tonight.
Yeah, he's going to Miami.
Mm-hmm. So she tells Bond, she's like, hey, I guess it means we can spend more time together. And Bond's like, well, then we're going to need more champagne.
Yep.
So he calls room service, and he orders another bottle of champagne and some more caviar.
Well, he asked her, too, like, does ellipsis mean anything to you?
Yes.
And she's like, 3 dots.
3 dots, yeah. Yeah, so he orders some champagne, some more caviar, and then the person on the other end of the phone asks, for 2? He's like, no, for 1. Because his intention is to leave Solange there.
He's going to go to Miami.
Yeah. And so he goes and follows Demetrius to the airport and gets on a plane to Miami and gets off that plane and follows him to the body exhibit.
Yes. So I forgot that the body exhibit is like in this movie.
Yeah.
Because like that was a big thing in the mid-2000s. It was a
huge thing in the mid-2000s. I mean, I remember going into DC and, when they had it at the Natural History Museum.
Yes.
And just seeing banners and everything all over the place for it.
Yeah. Like if it was in your town or city or was about to be in it, there were advertisements everywhere. Buses, billboards, everywhere.
Yeah. But it's basically a bunch of mannequins that are made up to be the different layers of the body.
The body.
Your musculature, your nervous system, your
all that.
Yeah.
So they're going around and excuse me. And Demetrius drops a key on it's a card table essentially, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be more cards in this movie.
Yep.
But Bond sees this.
Yeah, he drops the key right on top of a stack of chips.
And so Bond sees it. And then Demetrius, though, has caught sight of Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And obviously, this must be like opening night there at something like opening weekend. Because it's packed.
Yeah. So he walks up behind Bond, pulls a knife on him. And, they're talking a little bit, and Bond ends up turning the tables on him, getting the knife and stabbing Demetrius, and then gently sitting him down on a chair while he dies.
He dies.
And then Bond goes to get the key that Demetrius left, and it's gone.
It's gone. He's truly part of the body exhibit.
Yes.
So now he has to go back. He has to figure out, what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's not aware yet of the full plan.
No. But he catches sight of the guy that has the key.
Yep.
And he follows him back to the airport. The airport where he just was.
We're at the airport. Yeah. So
I already seen the airport.
Seen the airport. Oh, Alan Ruck. Unsung hero of speed.
Rabbit is good. Rabbit is wise. So, he follows the guy, and he walks up to a locked door that has a keypad. And, he punches a code in there, but Bond isn't able to see what code he put in. The door opens up, the guy goes in there. Bond runs over, calls MI6, and tells him that he needs a code for this door. And
yes,
it's going to take him too long to get it.
So, M is, she's there at headquarters now, and it's all serious, and she's, excuse me, taking, seriously what's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all trying to figure it out. The guy he's following, by the way, his name is Carlos Nicolek, portrayed by Claudio Santamaria.
Yes, Claudio,
who is also Italian.
Really? With a name like Santa Maria?
Yeah.
Had no idea.
Next thing is, his mom's name is going to be Nina.
Yeah. And his sister is Pinta. So, but
then he gets a thought.
He gets a thought. Yes, the light bulb goes off in Bond's brain. And he punches in ellipsis onto the code panel, and the door unlocks.
Probably helped him that, back in the day when you're using phones like that, you had to, hit the numbers several times.
Because each of the numbers has letters on it. And so
you didn't have your QWERTY keyboard.
Nope.
Right.
So the door unlocks, and he goes in, but the guy that he's chasing has already had a wardrobe change.
Yep.
When he had gotten inside that area of the airport, there was an airport police uniform in there for him. So he put that on and blended in with the crowd.
Blended in. So, meanwhile, MI6, they're still trying to figure out, what's the angle here? What are they going to do? And they find a news piece about how they're going to unveil the world's largest airliner.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the plan.
Yep. And so they're like, okay, well, they must be planning on blowing it up. And so Bond spots the guy that he's chasing,
mm-hmm.
and chases him down onto the tarmac.
Yeah. And now there's a large sequence of a chase.
Yeah. So the guy basically he gets into a fuel tanker.
One of the guys.
He gets in. Yeah. He kills the driver of the fuel tanker and takes it,
which is played Martin Freeman. Or Campbell.
Oh, it is. Oh, yeah. It is.
The director of the movie.
Yes.
Plays the poor guy that gets killed.
Yeah. Martin Campbell. But yeah, so so Carlos clips he clips a little bomb to the step, like to just below the step on this on this truck, on this fuel tanker truck, and he's going to drive it toward the plane, toward the hangar where they're unveiling this plane, and Bond catches up with the truck, and he gets in there, he's fighting the guy,
right,
and Carlos thinks he has the upper hand. He holds Bond out the door. Yes. And Bond sees that little bomb hanging on the steps, and then he gets pushed out of the car, out of the truck.
Yeah.
And or wait. No. Bond doesn't get pushed out of the truck. Carlos gets pushed out of the truck.
That's
Because
right.
at this point, the airport police had been out there and they're shooting at this truck because they see what Carlos is trying to do. Because the hangar is opening they're bringing the plane out, and this truck is headed straight for the plane.
Straight to the plane.
And so they're shooting at it. So there's bullet holes in the tanker, and it's spewing out fuel.
Yeah. And Bond's in this now.
And so Bond is the driver now. Because he knocked.
And he's trying to stop it so it doesn't hit the plane.
But Carlos had cut the brakes. Yeah. The brakes aren't working. So he can't stop it. So he's trying to run into everything he can to slow it down. And ends up, swerving and screeching to a halt right before it hits the plane. And so as he's getting arrested,
he's on the hood of the car, right? The guy's, he's in cuffs.
As he's getting arrested, then Carlos is sort of back at a safe distance for the explosion and watching it, and he pulls out his cell phone and he
gives Bond a little smirk,
and then he hits a button on his cell phone,
a smirk.
And he starts hearing this beeping, and he looks back, and Bond, when he saw that bomb hanging on the truck, he was able to get it and hook it onto Carlos's belt loop on the back of his pants.
Carlos went boom.
Carlos went boom. Carlos go boom.
You think Bond got some Carlos on him?
Probably.
So obviously they're gonna let Bond go.
Yeah.
But anyway. But unfortunately, for Le Chiffre, he's now kind of screwed.
Le Chiffre just lost $100 million because this plane didn't blow up.
He's gonna have some Ugandan guys.
Yeah. So now he owes these Ugandan guys $100 million.
So I'm just reading
that he doesn't have.
Okay, this is funny. I'm reading one of the credits one of the summaries for the movie. However, Bond discovered Carlos's small explosive device and attached it to his belt loop during the melee. Carlos ends up killing himself by accident.
By accident?
By accident? No.
Well, I mean, he purposefully detonated Bond deliberately put the bomb on him, and Carlos deliberately hit the button to detonate the bomb. He just didn't know it was on him. He just didn't know it was attached to his belt loop. There's no accident on anybody's part there.
Anyhow, and so we cut back. Bond's back in the Bahamas, and unfortunately, Solange has been murdered by Le Chiffre's guys.
Yeah.
So they found her. She was drowned, and then like in a fishing boat net, and then they hung up the net with her body from like the trees by Demetrius's house, right? Because Le Chiffre realizes the plot failed, right? Yep. And she must have been the one that to talk, to put on to the plan. So,
yep.
But so they M's down there in the Bahamas, and tells him that Le Chiffre, because he lost all that money for them. He's marked. And he has to find a way to get $100 million back.
Mm-hmm. And there just happens to be a poker tournament in Montenegro.
Yes.
That the prize is $150 million.
So they're going to send Bond in.
Because Bond is the best Texas Hold'em player in all of MI6.
Yes. Of course.
Yeah.
So what if the best player was like Dame Judi Dench?
Then Dame Judi Dench would go. And she would play.
I'd be scared to play Dame Judi Dench.
Bond would probably still go just to protect her. Yeah. But it's Dame Judi Dench. She probably doesn't need much protection.
Yeah.
I mean, she comes armed with the power of pantsuits.
So, and the basic rules within it is like to get into the game, it's a $10 million buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a $5 million buyback if you run out, right?
Yes.
So, as we said, it's at Montenegro at Casino Royale, right?
Hence the name of the movie.
So he's the best poker player, so he's going.
On.
But this time, she implants a homing device in his left arm.
In his arm. So she can keep tabs on him.
So they also then send him, he's on a train now, back in Europe, and going to Montenegro.
And they send member of the Treasury
Vesper Lind from the Treasury
Vesper Lind from the Treasury Department.
Keep tracks him. So they have a person to keep track of him and a homing device to keep track of him.
Yes.
Right.
And I love their conversation on this train.
Yes, I agree.
Like they're just sizing each other up, and just they're both they read each other right away.
They do.
And they're just describing each other to each other without having ever met. And spot on. And I love at the end because Bond, has his meal, his train meal, and after Vesper basically, stripped him down with her words. Right? She asks how his lamb is. And he's like, skewered. One can relate.
Yes. Yeah, it's a terrific conversation. So, and the basic setup is that they're going to be posing as a married couple once they arrive in Montenegro.
Yes, and so she comes out. She tells them, there's $10 million waiting in your account in Montenegro, and there's another $5 million that can be added to it if I deem it necessary.
Yes, important point.
She has the final say on if that other $5 million gets put in there. So
there's a line in here too where she talks about by the cut of your suit. It's like, you probably went to Oxford or some place high like that. I think most human beings dress like this, but you wear it with disdain.
Which means you probably didn't come in from money. You probably came in on somebody else's or from somebody else's charity.
Yes, but your friend, your chums, because the British would be chums, right? They rubbed it in your face, didn't they? So,
and he talks about her, how, it's you dress more masculine because it's very difficult for an attractive woman to actually make it in the in the world that you're living in, without people thinking that it was all just handed to you. So you go out of your way to make it clear that you earned it, that you fought your way to the top.
Right. And then they get the next morning and Bond's like, "Oh, did you have a nice sleep?" Just like how a married couple should be, right?
Yep.
And then she's like, "Oh yeah, it's disturbed by nightmares of financial ruin." And Bond just is like, "I'm so glad you care about my taxes." Or my, because it's funny because again they gave him a black card essentially, right? He could get a hotel anywhere in the world on taxpayer dime.
Yep. And so she's in the bathroom getting ready, and he pops in there, hangs a dress up, and she's like, "Is that for me?" It's like, "Yes, She's like, "Yes, I need you to when you come up behind me and kiss me on the neck, I need the other players to be focusing more on your neckline than they are on their cards."
Yes.
And then he goes back out, notices that there's a tux on the bed. And so he picks it up. He walks back in there. He's like, "Hey, I have a tux." She's like, "Yes, but this one's nicer." Like, I need you to look like you're meant to be there. And then he's like, it's tailored. He's like, I sized you up when I first met you.
Yeah. So they check in, and the name's under not Bond, it's under Beach, right? And they get in there, and they're kind of, again, they're kind of now doing more of the lowdown of everything that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And they meet up with their other contact that's there. A man by the name of Mathis.
Rene Mathis, played by Giancarlo Gianni.
I love Giancarlo Gianni. He is, obviously, he's Italian, right? And I first saw him in the movie Hannibal, the sequel to Silence of the Lambs. And loved his character in that movie. And, prior to the late 90s, he did not do a lot of American films. He did a few. Mostly did Italian movies. He was actually nominated for an Oscar in 1975 for Seven Beauties. And then as we got to late 90s, early 2000s, he started doing more American movies, including Hannibal and Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, right? But I'm a big fan of him as an actor.
Yeah, he's great.
Anyway, so he kind of gives him, a rundown of kind of what's going on in Montenegro at the time. And so then we finally cut to the beginning of the game, right?
Yeah.
And we get the rundown of the rules. There's a Swiss dude there. He represents a Swiss bank, and the bank is holding all of their money.
Yes.
During the game.
Yeah, so he tells them that
each person puts in a passcode.
Yes,
at least money 6 digits. Will be transferred to them once they win, and it's going to be held in escrow. And then a point later after that, then they would transfer that money to the bank of their choice.
Yes, to any bank
using that passcode. Yeah. And that's kind of sets up the game. I like the setup too, right? Yeah. It's the area set back towards somewhere there in the hotel. And
so Bond gets to go first to put in his code because they're going.
That's right, he does.
And B comes before all the other letters that are there.
And so he types his in, and then presumably everybody else types theirs in, right? You have Madame Wu's back there again, right? And then you have this Japanese guy that's there. You got Lashif there. There's this big heavyset black guy.
Big black guy there.
But there's also there's an American
Infante.
There. Infante.
Played by Ade. Infante was in Ade was in Snatch.
Okay. Oh, he was in Snatch. I did not realize that's that same person.
He was only in 8 different things. Snatch was his first movie.
There he is.
Casino Royale was only his 4th.
Oh, so the Japanese guy is Fukutu, played by Tom So. Then there is I guess there's a few other guys here.
There's Kamenowski, Gallardo, Tomeli.
And then there is Felix Leiter, who does not introduce himself as Felix Leiter yet. He's just kind of in the background.
Yeah.
Right now, but played by Jeffrey Wright.
Yes, played by Jeffrey Wright.
He's more important later in the proceedings.
Yeah, but he's at this point he's kind of just. You can tell he's keeping an eye on everything.
He is, yes, very much so. And then you have your dealer, played by Andreas Daniel, right? Here, and he goes by, credited as Daniel and Andreas for this movie. And then there's a director, right? He's kind of telling them all the rules, what the big blind and small blind cuts are. Excuse me. That's played by Carlos Leal. Who played Father Garcia in the movie Father Stu with Mark Wahlberg a few years back.
He was in that, wasn't he?
Right? So basically, they get on the first hand, and 007 loses a bunch of money.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, we never mentioned that, we mentioned that Bond became a 00 agent, but we never mentioned that his code name is 007.
No, we have not.
It's the first time we mentioned 007 in this episode, which is weird.
Very weird. I'm not sure how we had that oversight.
Yeah.
So they get to the first hand, and they're going back and forth on it. Bond's going to lose a bunch of money on it, but you can tell Bond's trying to size everything up.
Yeah.
Right? He's particularly he's sizing up the Chief. He's not obviously as concerned.
About everybody else, but
everybody else.
Basically, he just needs to. He doesn't necessarily need to win. He just needs to make sure Le Chiffre doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. That will be worth the $10 million buy-in as long as Le Chiffre doesn't win.
Because Vesper Lynn, played by Eva Green, she mentioned on the train that if Le Chiffre wins, then we will have willingly funded terrorism.
Monsieur Mandel. That's the Swiss guy. It's the character's name, by the way. I just found that. So, right. So yeah, and as Bond said, we don't need more bomb makers and money launderers that fund bomb makers in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the big blind they said is what, $10,000, and the little blind was $5,000. Okay, so Bond's there. He notices that Mathis is at the bar, right? And there's other people just kind of watching the game, right?
Yeah.
And Infante, he puts in his 20,000, and Bond looks at his cards. Bond has 2 aces, right? And he sees the Chief is also sizing him up.
Yes.
Right? And the Bond, he puts in his 20,000. Right? And then you have the Italian guy, right? And he folds, right? They're going back and forth, and Bond, he's focused right there on Le Chiffre.
Yep.
Right?
And when is it the bartender comes over?
It's after this hand.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So there's Bond smiles, right? He looks down there, on the table. There's 3 hearts, there's a 9, an 8, and a 5, right? Now, they go on, and Le Chiffre raises, and he's looking at him, right? He's looking at Le Chiffre, okay? And there's, sorry, forgot to mention, it's the 9, 8, and 5, they're all hearts, and that's what Bond has 2 hearts in his hand, right? Right? So he looks at Le Chiffre and he thinks, he's got to be bluffing. And Le Chiffre's got his hands, the neck, his left hand.
Yeah.
Up to, on his temple. Right? He's looking thoughtful, pensive. Right? And Bond goes ahead and he pushes in the middle of the table. Right? He meets the 50,000. Right? And the other guys fold. Right? And then, they Bond and Le Chiffre look at the cards, and Le Chiffre beats Bond.
Yeah.
Right. And Vesper, she's at the bar. She's by Mathis, and looks disappointed that he lost a bunch of money already on his hands.
To Le Chiffre.
Yeah. And that's right. She came in during the middle of this hand later than what she was supposed to. And he's like, you were supposed to enter so the others could see you.
Yeah, but she came from behind the others and walked around
Yes.
to Bond instead of coming in from behind Bond.
Right. And so it's like, oh, yeah, well, it's like, oh, was I? And the chief, he's getting impatient. He wants to get to the next thing. And right. And then, she gets back to the bar and, she's talking to Mathis. And Mathis is like, I suppose I don't have to tell you how beautiful you look. Half the people at that table are watching you. Right. So I guess that's before she comes in before they show the hands. That's right.
Yeah.
And then they show, and well, that's right. That's what happens. I think the chief is able. He lucks out. He gets a full house, and Bond can't beat it. Right. So that's when he calls the barman over.
Yes. And so Bond orders a drink that no one has ever ordered before.
Yeah, he just kind of comes out of nowhere with it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, he orders one thing. He's like, no, wait, no. Then he changes his mind.
Yeah.
It's never been ordered before.
He just starts spouting off all these ingredients, and everybody else at the table thinks it sounds delicious.
He says 3 measures of Gordon's, so gin, 2 measures of vodka, and 1 measure of
Lillet.
Yeah. Which, and he said then a twist of lemon.
Yes. No, not a twist of lemon, just a lemon peel. A thinly sliced lemon peel.
And then shake it. Right? And so this is the classic Bond martini, the Vesper.
Yes. Which he names later in the movie.
And so he goes over to collect it while everyone's like, oh, that sounds good. Right? Except Le Chiffre.
Yeah, so everybody else orders one too. And Le Chiffre is like, are we going to play cards?
What are we going to do here? I get why he's impatient.
Yeah.
He's got people that he's upset quite a bit. So I get it. Now, the thing about this is that the type of petite that he orders, they no longer make it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can not get the exact one. You can use Petite Blanc, or there's an Italian aperitif called Cocchi Americano that people will use to make it. So as we're speaking, I am currently mixing this for myself. So
yes, I mean,
because I feel like it's an appropriate way to go about this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so he goes over, and so here's the other thing. So have you ever read the book?
I have not
Casino
read
Royale?
the book. I have not read the book yet.
So in the book, he actually orders this in a deep goblet.
Oh, okay.
He does not order it in a martini glass.
Okay.
So technically, you would do it more within a goblet. As opposed to your standard martini glass.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I did not realize that. I was reading up on it after watching it last week for the show. And yeah, it's like I did not realize that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, so they get on with their game after that, and I guess the one of the cocktail waitress comes over with it, and she's like, "Oh, that's pretty good. I gotta come up with a name for it."
Yeah.
Which is, he said, which he will later in the movie.
He will later in the movie.
So,
so they play some more.
They play some more, and they take a break.
They take a break for an hour.
They've been playing for 4 hours.
Yes.
So they're going to take a break.
They play for 4 hours. They're going to take a break for an hour. So, Bond and Vesper start to go up to their room. Le Chiffre goes up to his room.
Yep. And his lady's there, right? And she's sitting on the like the patio on the deck of their room.
And he walks out to join her, and she apologizes.
He's like, for what? And that's when he gets jumped.
And yeah, that's when he gets jumped by a couple of Ugandans. And one of them, so he's like, you stole from us. That means we're going to take your hand.
Yeah, they're Ugandans, so they brought machetes.
Yes. So he pulls a machete out, but he's like, but you need your hand to play. So we'll take hers. And the other one holds Valenka's arm out. And then, Bond and Vesper are coming off the elevator. And while they're in the elevator, Bond put a earpiece in his ear. And they're getting out of the elevator and walking down the hall as the Ugandans are leaving the chief's room.
Yes.
And so they sort of duck into a little hallway, a little side hall alcove area. And they're making out to make it seem like, they're not who they are. And as the Ugandans are walking by, one of them notices the earpiece in Bond's ear.
Yeah.
And they... Oh, well, before that, but when they were walking the elevator, they stopped by the front desk and picked up a package that was there for Bond. And so when they were in the elevator, they opened the package. It was a gun with a silencer on it and the earpiece.
That's right.
Yeah, so Bond put the earpiece in, and the Ugandan noticed it and attacked Bond. So Bond's fighting these two Ugandans. And Vesper is kind of just there. She's trying to, avoid being caught in the middle of it. Trying to get away. And they go into the stairwell. And Bond kills one of them.
Well, before the applicants left the room, I also forgot about that. They don't actually take her hand.
No, they don't.
He brings it down and stops it. It's like, oh, he didn't even protest. You should find a new boyfriend.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
So, yeah, she doesn't actually lose her hand here.
No, she doesn't.
So, yeah, we get back to the hallway, and they notice, and they start shooting, and then, Bond, he ducks into, and Vesper, they duck into the stairwell.
Chase him in there, and so Bond's fighting them in there, going down the stairs. Vesper's just trying to stay away.
Yeah.
And so Bond ends up... Does he throw one down the stairwell, or does he sort of...
He throws one down the stairwell.
Yeah, he throws him down the stairwell, breaks his neck. Tony and Die Hard style. But he doesn't ride him down the stairs like a fucking sled. No,
he doesn't. So it's Bono is one of them, right? So the actual big Ugandan guy, and then he has his liaison, his little henchman. The henchman is the one that gets thrown over the railing and down the stairwell, right?
Yep. So then they get to the bottom of the stairs, and
well, they also end up killing Bono.
Yes, they do. But was it Vesper that killed Bono?
No.
Or was it Bond that killed? Yeah, that's right. It was Bond.
I think she I thought she was going to look like she might shoot him for a while, but then basically,
gives
Bond
the gun,
strangles him to death.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. Because she had picked up the gun, and Bond ended up killing him.
At this point, remember, now this point, Bond, he's bloodied because he's been in a fight.
Yeah, so he's got to go and change his shirt.
So he tells Vesper to go get Mathis, and then Mathis take care of the bodies.
Yeah.
Right, and so Bond, he goes back, he changes, right, and he's got a little cut when he gets back to the table. The chief notices the cut.
Yeah, the chief notices that he changed his shirt.
Yes. So the chief's thinking, "Oh, you killed the guys that were going after me."
Yeah. But then, they make a comment about, the game causing Bond to perspire.
That's right. You're getting the sweat. Hey, he's got a glandular issue. So it's funny here.
It doesn't really show any more of the game of this.
No,
of this
they don't start up. They're supposed to start up again, but then they don't really do it. And it seems like they break for the night.
Well, they do. I think it's just a time jump. Because they were going into play and they just didn't show them playing. Because the next thing you see is
they definitely played. They played. Definitely played. We don't see it, and then they break for the night.
They break for the night. Bond goes back to his room.
Bond goes back up, and now Vesper, he notices
that there's a broken wine glass on the floor.
Oh, that's right.
And so he immediately thinks the worst. And
it's a reasonable thought.
Here's the shower on in the bathroom. And so he goes in there, and Vesper is still in her dress, huddled in the shower.
Right. And she's crying. Hey, she's Treasury.
She's
not used to this.
No, she's not used to this kind of thing. She just saw two men get killed right in front of her after they were trying to kill her.
She doesn't want to fund terrorism. I mean,
and she feels like their blood is on her hands.
Yeah, right.
And so Bond
comforts her.
Yeah, he goes in there. He sits down right next to her, and just puts his arm around her. And she mentions that she can't get the blood out with it. She can't clean her hands. So he starts licking her fingers. He starts sucking on her fingers to, metaphorically clean the blood off of them. And, asks her if that's better. And she sort of nods her head. And he's like, is it getting cold? And she says, yes. So he reaches up and he turns on the hot water. But he doesn't try to get her out of there. He just sits there and comforts her.
No, he just sits there. He listens.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sensitive man. Bond's a sensitive soul.
He is. He is a very sensitive soul. Yes.
I forgot to mention this, by the way, too. We talked about how the chief will weep blood. He's got the tell of his fingers on his temple.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He also has an inhaler.
Yes. He does.
And Mathis gives a little tracking device to Bond.
Yes, so that
Bond puts it between the actual holder and then the container of the medicine.
Butyrol, so this is earlier in the movie. This is how Bond knew where Le Chiffre's room was.
Right, which is why I brought that up. It's like that's actually how they were able to figure it out. So, important little piece of information, and it's kind of forgetting. You see throughout the poker game, he's just takes out his inhaler and gives a little puff, right, and then moves on. Right, a lot of little ticks with Le Chiffre.
But when they do put the little tracker in there, I don't think they could be more obvious.
Oh no, it's very apparent
because they walk up there because Le Chiffre gets up from the table, he leaves his inhaler, and Bond and Mathis both walk up there, pick it up, look at it, hold it up so everybody can see them looking at it.
Yeah, no.
And they very obviously stick the tracker in there and put it back down on the table.
Yeah, no, it
for a couple of spies, you would think they'd be a little more discreet.
I've always been amused by that because it is very obvious. They don't find a way to figure it out anyway. So we cut to the next morning after this now, right?
Mathis meets Bond in his room, and they're out on the balcony. Yes. And they're talking, and
they're talking. Bond's like, "Oh, do you have any trouble with the bodies?"
and Mathis
Mathis' response, less than some.
Yeah. And their balcony overlooks the parking lot.
Yes.
And so he hits a button on a little remote. and the trunk for Lashif's car opens up. And there are two dead bodies in the trunk.
How did they get there?
And of course, the police are there.
And it's, you know, and the police are there, and they're with one of Lashif's, like, you know, henchmen, Leo.
Yeah.
Poor Leo. So obviously they arrest him.
Yep.
Despite his, you know, protest, he has no idea how those bodies got there.
Nope. But they're in his trunk, so yeah.
Well done, Mathis. But we should also mention that Bond explained to Mathis and Vesper about Lashif's tell.
Yes.
Like, it was actually worth losing it, so I know what his bluff is later.
Yeah. So, then it's back to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And Bond orders another drink, orders another, what will become known as the Vesper.
Does he? Wait, is this at this point yet when this happens, or? Yes, this would be the first thing that happens. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like shortly after they start the game.
Well, there's. Yeah. Right. Right. Okay.
Because
or. Does that happen then, or does he lose the money first?
No, this happens first. Before he loses the money.
Okay. That's right.
Yeah, because he
right,
he orders a drink, and as like right after it's made, as it's sitting on the bar waiting to be taken over to him.
That's right.
Valenka is there. And this is when we ultimately realize she did not lose her arm.
Yes.
Because she dumps something in his drink.
Mm-hmm.
And so it when he gets taken over to him, he takes a sip of it, puts it back down, and then after a few seconds realizes there's something in it. That he just ingested something. And excuses himself from the game. Runs out to his Aston Martin DBS that was given to him for the mission.
Mm-hmm.
By MI6. And he calls MI6, tells them that he's been poisoned. And so they get their doctors on it. They're walking him through what to do. At this point
now, like, he's getting, like, he's dizzy. Things are blurry. He can barely stand.
Yeah. So they tell him,
like,
get in the glove compartment
over into his
pull out
car.
this blue this blue antidote, and inject that into your neck, and then you're going to need to restart your heart.
Yeah.
So there's a
defibrillator like in the car.
So they hook up the defibrillator. It's going to take a minute to charge. So as soon as it's ready to go, hit the button. And so it charges. He hits the button. Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
He hits it again. Nothing happens. He hits it a few more times. Nothing happens. And then he notices that one of the plugs for the paddle that's on his, or for the pad that's on his chest,
is not connected to the actual defibrillator. Yeah.
So he fumbles
before
around.
He can do it, he passes out.
So he fumbles around, almost gets it into the hole, but passes out before he does. And then we see Vesper show up, and she grabs it, plugs it in, hits the button, shocks his heart, and he wakes up. And then, I love it. He says thank you to Vesper, but the guy on the phone thinks he's talking to him. So he's like, "You're welcome." And then he's like, "Now, Bond, you're gonna want to go to a hospital and get yourself checked out." He's like, "I will, but first I have to win this game."
I don't know why. That reminds me of Happy Gilmore when he gets run down by the bug.
Mm-hmm.
And then the doctor's like, it's like, you shouldn't play anymore. You should, actually get, go to the emergency room. It's like, no, I'm going to finish.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do. What do I know? I'm a doctor.
So he goes back in.
Bond's right to go back.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway. I mean, I guess technically the game could be put on hold.
And Vesper is telling him, you need to go to a doctor. You should not be being this irresponsible with this game. And so he goes in and loses. Right.
He's miscalculated the tell.
Yeah. He
and
realizes that
Mathis is watching this too, and he's talking to Vesper, and he's like, "Oh, that's the tell. Must be bluffing." He's like, and he's looking at what other people have, and he's just kind of thinking about what Bond has, and just see what happens.
Yeah, and so Lashif does his tell. Bond thinks that he's legit, and that's when he shouldn't be betting, and loses because Lashif successfully bluffed.
Yes.
And so then
he was on to that Bond knew his bluff.
Yes.
So he bluffed his bluff.
Yep. He knew that Bond knew his tell, so he bluffed his tell.
Yes.
But yeah, so Bond goes to Vesper, and he's like, I'm going to need that $5 million so I can buy back in, and she refuses to
give it to him.
She will not.
She's mad.
She's mad at him. She thinks he's being irresponsible with the government's money.
Which she sized up back on the train.
Mm-hmm.
He's a hothead.
She thinks that his ego is too big, and his ego will not allow him to win.
Right.
It'll get in the
way. By
way.
the way, I know we mentioned this back at the beginning of the show, but Vesper is played by Ava Green.
Yes.
Who's a beautiful lady.
Yes, very.
She's Bond, she's a Bond girl. That's what they do.
Yes.
But
Ava Green especially she's a beautiful lady.
Definitely one of the best Bond girls out there.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, so now he's getting upset. So he is going to go and try to take care of Lashif himself, right? Because they have another short break, and he's got like a knife.
Yeah,
that he's concealed.
Yeah, he grabbed a knife off the table, and it's just like a dinner knife. And as he's going down the stairs, he gets stopped by Jeffrey Wright.
Yep,
who introduces himself as Felix Leiter, who works for the CIA.
I'm on your side, but I'm American, but on your side, right? He's like, and he tells him it's like, aren't you gonna cash back in?
Aren't you gonna buy in? And Bond's like, no.
He's like, no. It's like, what? Why? And Bond, every this time, he's seeing blood. Like he needs to, he's angry. He's upset.
He needs to take Lashif out. And so Felix,
it's like, I'll front you.
Yeah, Felix is like, I'll front you the cash to get back in
on one condition.
The CIA gets to take Lashif in.
So yeah, Felix Leiter's CIA.
And so Bond agrees. And Lashif is surprised when Bond's suspecting
Felix is telling us I'm bleeding chips. Yeah, I'm going to be out again soon.
You're clearly a better player than I am.
You're going to have a better chance at beating him.
Yeah. So basically, Felix gives up his spot at the table for Bond.
Yeah. I mean, Felix was there for one more hand.
Mm-hmm.
But then, he's out.
Yeah.
Essentially. So, and Bond buys back in. He gives his, $5
million
for the, your last buy-in.
Mm-hmm. And then Lashif is really surprised to see Bond there when he shows back up to the table. But I love it because forgot to mention, after the poisoning, when Bond got back to the table before he lost.
That's right.
He sat down. Lashif was shocked to see him.
To see him back.
And Bond's like, wow, that last hand almost killed me.
So we mentioned this earlier a little bit. Daniel Craig does a great job of delivering things with such like dryness.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it carries throughout his role as Bond.
Yes, it does.
The other movies. You know,
Yes,
I'm thinking of a couple specifically from Skyfall.
Yep.
It's like, right, but it's great here, and I know we mentioned it earlier that he's such a physical Bond, also.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
We kind of saw it with the fight in the stairwell scene. We saw it with the chase in Madagascar, and even to see it with him, as the poison's taking effect on him.
Yeah,
he's stumbling around and doing what he needs to do, and he puts such a great demeanor in these scenes.
Yeah.
And like he's still a youngish agent 00, but he's he's cocky and confident.
Mm-hmm.
So, we get back, several other players are down, out of the game besides Leiter, and it's just a few of them left.
Yeah. And one by one, they're getting taken out. And it comes down to, let's see, it comes down to Bond, Le Chiffre, Infante, and who was the other one? Was that Fukutu?
Yeah, it's Infante. Yeah, but yeah, yes, you're right.
So
Fukutu. Yes.
Yeah. So it's the four of them are left at the table, and they're going through, and Fukutu and Infante are barely still in the game.
They're barely so like they just go all in. Like they just put
That's
in
all they can
what
do.
They can.
That's all they can do because they don't have enough to cover the bet. So they have to go all in. And then Le Chiffre goes all in. He goes all in, and then Bond goes all in. So there's $150 million on the table.
Here we are.
The last hand. And Le Chiffre calls. So each of them they're putting down they're showing their cards. Fukutu puts his down. And Infante puts his down, and Infante's got a full house that beats Fukutu, so he's all excited, he's all proud. Le Chiffre puts down a higher full house. Because Fukutu was aces over eights.
Yes.
Full house. And then Le Chiffre was jacks over sixes, I believe it was.
That sounds right to me. And if I can get to the actual...
Oh, wait, no. It wasn't. Because because Infante had 3 eights, 2 aces. Le Chiffre had, I think, 3 jacks, 2 sixes, I think is what it was. So yeah. So he had the higher full house. And then it all comes down to Bond.
What does Bond have?
Bond.
What do you think Bond has?
Puts down his cards, and they're both spades. The 5 and the 7 of spades. And that goes along with the 4, 6, and 8 of spades that are on the table to create a straight flush.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Straight flush.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that beats that
is a royal
the
flush.
royal flush. Which is a straight flush, but the royal variety.
Yes. Yes. So, Bond wins. He wins $150 million. And Le Chiffre is fucked.
So you got to remember here, right? So the main guy that he the leader of this resistance, like, he's dead. But, you know, the chief probably knows that at this point. But he knows that he's got this other organization that he's kind of fucked over because of his incompetence.
Yes.
So he's scared about that. And he's like, what am I going to do here?
So he has his men, you know, after the game, he has his men kidnap Vesper. They grab her and they take her out of the car and they put her in their car.
You know what? I like Bond is very nice after he wins.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He gives a nice tip.
He doesn't just give a nice tip. He gives the dealer $500,000. He
nonchalantly says, thank you.
Yeah, he nonchalantly says, thank you very much. He just tosses the dealer a $500,000 chip. Like,
thank you very much.
This is for you. Like, thank you very much.
And he just tomorrow.
And you see how quick he grabs it? He's like, thank you very much. And he grabs it, just pulls it over to him.
I would just love a movie. Just, you know, where does he retire?
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, $500,000 is probably not enough to truly retire, but he doesn't have to work for a while.
No.
And he was probably like, he has to be a really good dealer if they entrusted him to do this game.
Yes. So, I mean, I'm sure he's already got a bunch of money at home from being this high end of a dealer. I'm sure he gets big tips.
Yes, but not $500K. You know, you might get
also,
like, you know,
when the pot is 150 million, $500K really isn't much. Like on Bond's end.
It's not even 10%. It's not even 5%.
No.
It's like anyway. So yes, they kidnap Vesper, and
so they kidnap Vesper.
He goes
put her in their car.
off.
So he gets in his Aston Martin DBS, and he's following them, racing down the road, and he goes around a curve.
Like, we've gone this long without him like truly driving.
Yes. So he's racing down there. He goes around a curve, and there's Vesper laying down in the middle of the road. And so he swerves, and the car flips like 7 times. And I guess Aston Martin was upset with this scene. Not because they wrecked the car. Because, I mean, it's a Bond movie, so that's bound to happen.
Yeah, totally.
But I guess they were upset because there's no way
that the
DBS would flip like that, because they built it in such a way that it has such a low center of gravity that it's virtually impossible to flip it like that.
Hey, James Bond can do some impossible shit. Just saying. He can do stuff like that. Oh, and by the way, he's convinced at this point that... Oh, not yet. We'll get to that in a few minutes. All right. So...
Yeah, so he sort of narrowly missed running over Vesper.
He gets dragged out of his car after it's flipped 7 times, much to Aston Martin's dismay. The next thing we see him, he's in this dark room. He's naked, tied to like a wicker chair.
Yeah.
That's had the bottom cut out.
Yes. And we're like, why is he sitting tied naked to a bottomless chair?
You want to know why?
We'll find out in a minute.
Reason to why Bond does not have children.
Yes. So, Le Chiffre comes walking out, and he's like, I never understood these extravagant tortures. Sometimes the simple way is the best. And he reveals that he's holding a rope with a knot tied at the end of it.
Yeah.
What's he going to do with this rope? Well,
What can I tell you?
He's trying to get the account number and the password. Or he's trying to get Bond's passcode, not because he figures he can get the account number, but he needs the password so that he can get the money that Bond won. And when Bond doesn't tell him, he very gently swings that rope with the knot on the end under the chair, right up into Bond.
Into the bonds.
Yes. Into James's bonds.
And Bond's happy. He's just getting his sinuses cleared by all this.
Yes. So he asks him again, what's the password? And Bond won't tell him, so he swings a little harder.
Hey, can you get a little more to the left? You got to itch that one.
He's like, so he asks him again. He swings it even harder. And Bond is like, oh, can you just... He's like, and Bond is clearly in pain. He is in pain. And Le Chiffre is like, what's the password? And Bond's like, can you help me out a minute? For a second, I got an itch down there. And so he swings it even harder.
Daniel Craig in this scene, the way he sells it.
Yes.
To be both in pain, but also to be able to try to fool him and just like put on the face that to do more.
Yeah, and it's a Bond screams. He's like, no, left. He hits him again. He's like, right there.
Like, that's the sweet spot.
He just starts laughing. And Le Chiffre asks him why he's laughing. He's like, I'm laughing because you're going to die scratching my balls.
There's a lot of great lines, and that one is it takes the cake for this movie.
Yep.
The world's gonna know you died scratching my balls.
The world's gonna know you died scratching my balls.
She's like, yeah, who's gonna kill me?
And the door opens up.
Well, they hear these noises. Yeah, right? They hear some gunshots.
Yeah, because Le Chiffre tells Bond that Vesper is in the room next door, and they're getting the account number from her.
That's right.
And he's like, "Isn't it nice that I knew that you knew my tell? Because you see, your man Mathis is actually my man Mathis."
That's right.
And yeah, so then you go through the whole, ball bashing torture. And the door opens up, and Mr. White is standing there with a gun.
And the chief starts pleading. He's like, I can have the money.
Yeah, I can have the money to you tomorrow. And that's not enough. That's not good enough for Mr. White. And he shoots Le Chiffre and kills him. And then the next...
And that's the thing is, like, and just before that, like, after, like, Bond does say, like, no matter what, I'm not going to tell you the password. So your clients will hunt you down and kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Cut you into tiny pieces.
Yeah.
And that's when the chief's like, oh, but you're wrong. Like, like, I still, I have your girl. And he's like, oh, yeah. And your people will welcome me with open arms because they need all my clients. Right? So they're not going to care. And it's when they hear the noises and Mr. White comes in and he executes the chief.
And then next thing we see
I like what Mr. White says. Money isn't as valuable as knowing who to trust.
Yes. So
right.
Bond
it's
is
not always
hospital.
About the money. It's not always about the money. It's about the chaos you can create.
Yeah. So Bond is out in the courtyard of a hospital in a wheelchair with a blanket over his legs.
He's in the hospital for who knows how long.
Yeah. I mean, clearly it's long enough. It's long enough for his balls to heal up because he gets frisky with Vesper.
Yes, they have a holiday of friskiness.
Yes. So they're outside, and the guy from the bank comes. The guy with the computer where they put the passwords in comes up and has them put in the account number and the password. And so Vesper goes to put in the account number, and she tells Bond, put in the password. And he's like, "You do it." And she's like, "I don't know it." It's like, "I'll tell it to you. Vesper." And so she puts in her name.
And it works.
And it works.
And
the funds are transferred. And then, at one point, and then, it skips ahead a little bit because he's out of the wheelchair now, and they're going to go and reach emotional catharsis on his hospital bed.
Yes. They come very close.
Yeah.
Before all this, I forgot. There's a scene between Bond and Mathis. And they're talking, and Mathis is like, "Oh, yeah, well, it's amazing they left the two of you alive."
Yeah.
Right?
And
these two guys come up, and they stun Mathis and carry him off.
And this whole time, Vesper has been wearing this necklace.
Mm-hmm.
And Bond and Vesper are sitting down at a table, and Bond mentions, I've finally figured out what that is. It's an Algerian love knot. Whoever gave it to you must have really loved you. And I notice you never take it off because you must still be, pining this person. This happened earlier.
Yes,
but
this is very important.
This is very important. But yeah, so he notices after the when they're at the hospital that she's not wearing it anymore, and she's not wearing that necklace anymore. And she says she's moved on.
Mm-hmm.
So, so they're getting ready to go, and she was going to go get the money from the bank because they were going to run off.
Well, they get back,
because he gets
out of the hospital.
Yeah.
They almost have the catharsis on the hospital bed.
Yeah, and he sends an email to M.
And he's going to retire.
He's resigning from MI6, effective immediately.
I shouldn't say retire. He's resigning.
Yes, he's resigning from MI6, effective immediately.
He's going to have a little holiday
with immediate effect.
Yes, he's going to prounce around the world for a little bit.
Yeah. He got $150 million.
They got enough money for a while that the two of them can just holiday.
Because that was
the thing.
One of the things earlier when Felix offered to front the money for him to get back in the game, Bond asked, "Well, what about the winnings?" And Felix said, "Do I look like we need the money?"
Like, come on, it's the CIA.
So yeah.
So we see them like on a yacht. They're driving around, and they're riding around.
Mm-hmm. Bond sends the email.
He sees it, and then he's talking. It's like, "Yeah, remember how I told you about Lashif's tell? Well, Mathis told Lashif. That's how he wiped me out, and that's how he knew about about the implant."
Yeah, because Lashif and his men had taken the implant out of his arm so that MI6 couldn't track him.
And then, it's like, investors are like, "Oh, I can't believe all that." Bond's like, "Well, that's why we're spies. People spy our true intentions. They have to come up with another name for us." It's like, "Yeah, I was in plain sight. I thought he had my back. Lesson learned." Right? Vesper's like, "Does everybody have a tell?" Bond's like, "Everyone but you."
Yep, everyone but you.
I wonder if that's why I love you. The enigma.
Yep, and then at one point,
at one point they're there, and she sees this person like in the crowd. They're in Venice now.
Also at one point, Bond has a Vesper, like he's holding the drink.
Oh yeah,
he's like, "I think I know what I'll name it. The Vesper."
That's right. I forgot about that. So they're in Venice now, right? And they're in the canal and they're going around and she's taking pictures and she sees a man in a Panama hat.
Mm-hmm. There's always a Panama hat.
He's got glasses on.
You always have to watch out for a man in a Panama hat.
Yes. They might try to extort you. They might try to eat you.
Yep. You always got to watch out for a man in a Panama hat. They might try to not let you steal their Cross of Coronado from them.
But
to put in the museum.
I forgot about that one. Anyway, it's obvious that she knows man in Panama hat.
Yes.
And she looks kind of forlorn about this. And then she looks again. Then she doesn't see him. We go on. Like I said, they're in Venice. Because of course they're in Venice. Right? And so they get in, they're in their room, and this time, they're naked. What happened?
Well, when two people love each other very much,
so they get done.
So Vesper.
Go on.
So Vesper gets up, gets dressed, and she says she's going to go and get the money from the bank, and she'll meet Bond, out at the, she'll meet Bond outside.
Yeah.
In 30 minutes.
She's on her cell phone, and she texts something.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And then once Vesper leaves, Bond gets a phone call from M.
And she's very cross.
She's very cross.
She's there with someone else that's also very cross.
Yes. And Bond thinks that she's calling him about his email. And
we'll get to that later.
We'll talk about that later when you get back.
It's like, you're not resigning. What are you talking about?
I was just calling to let you know that we have not received the money yet. The money has not been put into the account yet. He's like, oh, I didn't think you'd miss it.
On my way to the bank. Oh, so that's what he says.
I didn't think you'd miss it.
I didn't think you'd miss it.
And he's like, I'm on my way to the bank now. Realizing that Vesper put it in a different account.
Yep. And then so he goes over, and she kind of left her phone. She left her phone,
mm-hmm.
right? Kind of on like a little dresser that's in the hotel where they're renting or staying. And he looks at it and he sees a message, right?
Yeah.
And so he goes to where they're supposed to meet, right? And he sees Vesper and the man in the Panama hat.
Yep.
And she's withdrawing the money, right?
Yep. And she's going
to give it to him.
To the man in the Panama hat. And so there's another chase. Bond chases them.
Well, they end up spotting Bond.
Yeah, they spot Bond. They shoot at him, and then they're chasing him, or he's chasing them. And they're in Venice.
Which, if you're not familiar with Venice, it's a city of canals. It's mostly on water. A lot of water. Technically sinking.
And there is there may or may not be sharks in Venice.
Oh, goodness.
If you haven't seen the movie Sharks in Venice, check it out. It's great.
I was not expecting that to come up. I was just thinking about the librarian from Last Crusade.
He's there too.
Boom. So they end up in this house that's like kind of, on one of the canals there, but it's like it's under construction and they're reconstructing it, whatever.
Yeah, and there's this elevator that's just kind of an open air elevator. It's just right in the middle of the stairwell. Like there's a stairwell and there's an elevator going up in the middle of it, between the stairs, and so as this chase is causing this building to start to collapse.
Right, and you're getting these scenes like you're getting people are eating out in like little piazzas or little like bars and restaurants that are there, and they're seeing like the dust starting to kind of fly up from the thing. It's starting to crumble a little bit, and there's kind of some little waves happening in the water, right?
And so the guys that Vesper is with, because now she's essentially their hostage.
Yes.
And so they put her in the elevator. And it's one of the ones with those accordion doors kind of things.
Yes.
And,
by the way, the character that in Panama Hat guy, the character's name is apparently Adolf Hitler. But I like Panama Hat guy.
Yes, Panama Hat guy's better.
Played by Richard Sammel, by the way. Who I think it's appropriate that his character's name in this movie is Adolf, because he was also in Nazi in Inglourious Bastards.
Okay, then yeah, that's very fitting.
He's the guy that Eli Roth beats to death.
Okay.
In Inglourious Bastards.
Spoiler alert for Inglourious Bastards. Richard Sammel's character gets beaten to death by Eli Roth. But
I mean, the movie is about a group of people that kill Nazis.
That hunt Nazis,
and then you see a Nazi that gets captured.
Yeah.
Which is this dude.
Yeah. So you can imagine what they do.
He's going to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not going to do this. The full spoiler alert that Hitler dies. I mean, Hitler dies anyway, right? Anyway.
Yeah. But anyway. So they put Vesper in the elevator as the building's collapsing.
Yes. And
the elevator goes underwater.
Well, so, I mean, and by this point, Bond has killed, like, these other guys. Including Adolf, or Panama Hat guy.
Well, one of them got away with the briefcase that had the money in it, though.
That's right. One did. But Panama Hat guy gets killed. Like,
yes.
He gets killed with a nail gun.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, Bond shoots him with a nail gun.
Bond shoots a nail through his eye into his brain.
Which is a very unsafe nail gun, because those things, they're not designed to be able to just shoot at will like that. You actually have to push them up against the thing you're nailing and then shoot the nail in there.
Hey,
they have a safety feature that keeps it from shooting like Bond shot
maybe it. This is in Italy. Maybe Italy just does not have those regulations.
Maybe they don't have OSHA.
Hey, Mussolini got the trains to run on time, but fuck OSHA. Workplace safety.
So anyway, so the elevator goes into the water, and the door is locked on it. And so rather than going after the briefcase with the money in it,
he goes after Vesper.
And
even though she betrayed him,
and he's trying to get this door open, but it's locked. And she realizes what she's done. She feels guilty for betraying him because she loves him.
We'll find out that she had a good motive.
Yes.
No, I should say good motive, but she had a reason.
Yes. So as he's trying to get the door open, she sort of pushes herself back into the back corner of the elevator and inhales and allows herself to drown.
Yeah.
Just as Bond is prying the door open, and he grabs her and gets her out and takes her up onto dry land. And he's trying CPR, but it's not working.
It's too late. She's gone.
Yeah.
because she's a Bond girl.
Yeah. Not all Bond girls die.
Not all.
The main ones usually don't. The secondary ones usually do, but the main ones usually don't.
But this is also his origin. This is what needs to drive him.
Yes. So, next he's on the phone with M, and she's explaining what went on with Vesper. Her Algerian boyfriend was kidnapped and held hostage unless Quantum, unless Vesper helped Lashif get the money. Or helped Quantum get the money.
You know, and M's apologize. Like we should have recognized this, and we're sorry we did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this Algerian boyfriend was the one that gave her the love knot, the Algerian love knot, and he actually plays a pretty major part in Quantum of Solace.
He does,
but he doesn't make an appearance in this movie. He's just mentioned here.
No, just mentioned.
But so I mean that explains her actions.
Yes, it does.
You know, but Bond still is not taking that as, you know, a good explanation.
No.
You can tell he wants to.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, at one point he says, the bitch is dead.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Hey, he's stoic. He knows how to push it down.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
He has to.
Yep. Push it on down and focus on the mission. So after this conversation with M,
M tells him, like, you know, take the time that you need.
Yeah, take the time that you need.
Hey, Dame Judi Dench also can have a soft heart.
Yes, she can. She is also a badass with a heart of gold. So Bond decides, rather than taking the time that he needs, he's going to go after Mr. White and the money. So, next thing we see, Mr. White is at this villa.
This nice villa.
And Bond shows up.
Well, he gets shot.
Yes,
and then we see Bond.
Yes, yeah. So Mr. White gets shot, not killed, but shot. And Bond comes walking out, holding a gun.
And you get the classic Bond theme music.
Mm-hmm.
I love the shot.
Yeah, me too.
He's got he's holding the gun up. Yeah. This is the perfect ending.
Yeah, it is.
It's the perfect way to end what could theoretically be the first Bond movie,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, so Mr. White asks him who he is, and he says Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond. And then and then we fade to the credits. And that's the end. And like, oh yes. And it's perfect because, like, all right, we talked about it earlier, right? The Brosnan Bond movies. You know, I think, you know, especially like the GoldenEye and, you know, originally, and at first I think they had their fanfare, and by this point people still loved, you know, your Connery ones, and they, you know, the Moore movies had a special place for people, right?
Yeah.
But I think people were ready for like a nice reinvention of Bond, and this movie did it.
Yes.
And that ending, you know, the way, especially with the movie itself and the way they end it, just it pumped you up. Like, wow, yes, this is a truly great Bond movie.
Yes,
that we've been waiting for.
Yes.
Like, I want more Daniel Craig as James Bond.
Yes.
And we got it.
We got it.
We got 4 more Daniel Craig movies as Bond. And it's kind of funny because, like, in general, like most Bond movies have 2, maybe 3 years between them.
Yeah,
At
this
least
one.
within the same actor.
Yes.
Between actors, there might be a little bit more of a gap.
Yeah, I mean, because they have to find the new actor, they have to, all that.
But and then Quantum of Solace, I think, was 2008 or 2009,
Yes.
and like I think they kind of kept that
Quantum of Solace was 2008
years.
because Quantum of Solace. One of the reasons why it's as weak as it is when it's on its own is because it was a victim of the writer's strike. In a way,
that's right. Because I'm glad he brought that up. Yeah. So it's shorter. It's a short amount of time, but with that strike, that makes sense. Then Skyfall was 2012, so 4 years. Not that big of a gap.
And when was Skyfall to Spectre? It was a while. It was
2015. It was 3 years, so I guess maybe not that bad. But then, the big one would have been from that to No Time to Die. But then again, they had COVID.
Yeah.
But even with that, like 2015, like COVID was in 2020. So there was already a gap even before that.
Yeah.
So, 4 movies, essentially, what, 17 years? 15 years, sorry, 15 years.
Yeah.
For the Craig movies. But, yeah, no, again, like, it pumped you up. You were ready for it. Like, it was a great experience in the theater.
Yeah, it was. It was. Yes.
And the main part was like, the first time being kind of more like an adult watching a Bond movie in the theaters and enjoying that and wanting more of it. And again, we said earlier, like it's, I think, I think to a certain point, after Skyfall came out, a lot of people might have had Skyfall over Casino Royale. But, after watching it again and giving it a little bit of time, Casino Royale is the best Craig movie.
Yes.
And in terms of overall Bond movies, like the only other movie that would come close to it would be Goldfinger. I mean, it's the two.
Goldfinger or
those two. For me.
From Russia with Love is a great one also.
From Russia with Love is really good too.
I mean, it's got Robert Shaw.
Yeah, it does. They're basically the three.
Yeah.
You gotta go with.
Yeah.
Dr. No's fine. But it was finding its footing there. Like it didn't really. It found itself later after Dr. No.
Yes.
And Dr. No is still one of the better efforts. But yeah. And
Goldfinger is the first use of the gadgets.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's I'm glad he brought that up because like Dr. No, excuse me, sorry. Dr. No is much more grounded.
Mm-hmm.
So if you watch a lot of Bond movies and you watch Dr. No, which is the first one, you'd be probably a little bit surprised. It feels a little bit different than the other ones because you don't have the gadgets. Not that Casino Royale has a lot of gadgets.
It doesn't have any gadgets. It has a defibrillator.
Yeah. It's got
a tracking device.
Right?
There's no real gadgets. So the Craig Bond doesn't really get gadgets per se until Skyfall.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
And even then, it's just
which actually makes
a gun
sense
that only works with his fingerprint.
Theory that the first two in the full chronology would be Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, then Dr. No.
And Dr. No. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And then they bring it all in. But, yeah. You get, the defibrillator. They have their own special way of reviving him. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But overall,
so this is easily one of my favorite Bond movies. It's top 2, top 3 easy.
Yes, definitely. And it really kind of, it brought the franchise to kind of a different direction in some ways. I mean, Well, this and Skyfall, like Quantum of Solace,
Yeah.
we kind of talked about that. And
Yeah.
Skyfall did its own thing also, but and now we'll see. We'll see who the next Bond is. Who the next Bond is.
Yes.
And yeah, I await that. But I loved coming back to this because, in the theater I loved it, and I went out and got it and watched a bunch, and it's been a few years, and I was so happy to watch it again.
Me too. It's always great just putting in a Bond movie and watching it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's kind of excuse me, it's lost now. Like for a while, especially when more people had cable. There's just some days, they'll just be having a Bond marathon. I was like, oh,
yeah,
all right. I don't even have to watch all of this one. Oh, okay, yeah.
That's the beauty of a Bond movie. A lot of times you can, if it's on TV or something, you can turn it on in the middle of it, and
it's like, it
still engages you.
You get home, eat some lunch on a Saturday, and then you turn on the TV and you see Only Live Twice is on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, good. It's halfway through. I'm still gonna watch the end of it.
Oh, The Spy Who Loved Me. Okay.
Maybe I'll start with the next one, which is Spy Who Loved Me, or maybe Moonraker's coming on. Okay, I'll start it. If I don't finish it, I don't finish it.
And also the beauty of the Bond movies is most of the time, you don't have to watch them in order.
You don't. No.
I mean, Daniel Craig is really the only one that has a main overarching storyline throughout his movies.
Yes.
To where things from movie actually affect three movies later.
Yeah. But you could still watch them.
Yeah, you can.
You want to watch them.
Can still watch them that way. Yeah. But
no, we might do another Bond movie down the road. I would love to do a Connery Bond. Probably Goldfinger.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to do a Connery Bond too.
I don't know when that will be, but
yeah. But yeah,
I think it's
we'll have more
for
Bond
doing
movies
one
in
now.
Here. Yes, I do too.
I think it's been a while. We've talked about, we've thought about it. And just a good time to do it. And I think Daniel Craig kind of reinventing Bond was a good way to start it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anything else you want to say about it?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well.
We covered Bond pretty well.
So if you want to,
and I should say, I think they do a good job of reinventing it, but also kind of providing context to parts of the Bond character.
Yes,
they kind of thought about. Again, why doesn't he have kids after he screws all these women? Because Mads Mikkelsen destroyed his testicles.
Because his testicles don't work anymore.
And we get the creation of the Vesper Martini in this movie. Right? So, yeah. Anyway, I think those are my final words.
All right. Well, if you want to follow us on social media, go ahead and check us out on Facebook and Instagram and Threads. We are Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. The and is spelled out. It's not an ampersand like it is in the name of the podcast. You can also find us on X or Twitter. That is R&T Cinematic. We're also on Letterboxd, so you can go and check out some of our reviews on movies, some that we have done on the podcast, some we haven't done, some we will do, some we won't do. Yeah, check it out. It is Cine Adventure or Sign Adventure, CINE Adventure. And you can also just shoot us an email at robandtonyscinematicadventure@gmail.com. Once again, the and is spelled out, A-N-D. It's not an ampersand like it is in the name of the podcast. So yeah, let us know. What did you think of Casino Royale? Was it your favorite Bond movie? Is it your least favorite Bond movie? Do you hate the fact that Daniel Craig is blonde?
That's a great point to bring up. I'm sure there's people out there that still hate that Daniel Craig was cast as James Bond because he has blonde hair, even though he proved himself very able.
Yes. Anyway, whatever the case, send us an email. We want to hear from you.
Who do you want to be the next Bond?
Yes, that's a good question too. Let us know your thoughts. And if you enjoy what you're listening to, then go to our social media and give us a like and a follow. Go to your favorite podcasting app, wherever you're listening to us. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a good rating, a good review. That's how we move up in the standings and the search and the recommendations, all that stuff. And just enjoy listening, because we want you to enjoy what you're hearing so that you can pass it along to your friends and neighbors, and we can get more people listening. We can reach more ears. We can reach more people that want to hear us go on and on about these movies that we love. And so at the time of recording this episode, just yesterday, we learned some bad news.
It's very bad news.
Some very sad news.
I was kind of shocked by it because I didn't even think about it within the context of being April Fool's Day. I thought about that. I thought it was real, but it was still shocking.
Yeah. So we learned that Val Kilmer has passed away. And so we were going to do a particular movie next time, but we're going to put that off another week. And
it's not the first time we've tabled movies.
It is not the first time we've tabled movies. And we're only pushing it back 1 week so that our next episode can be our Val Kilmer tribute episode.
I know we just did Top Secret, but it just feels appropriate to do it again.
Not to do Top Secret again,
but a Val Kilmer movie again.
In his honor. So we are going to, we had a few of them in mind that we were trying to decide between, and we were able to narrow it down and decide on one particular movie.
I'm not going to lie. When we first started talking about this, I was resistant to it in my mind.
Me too.
But now I think it's the perfect way to go.
Yes, me too. We're going to be talking about Batman Forever, when Val Kilmer had his turn as Batman, because it's a movie that, some people love it, some people hate it, but any problems that arise from this movie are not Val Kilmer's fault.
I think it's an appropriate thing that he's in this club of actors that have done Batman. Mm-hmm. It's a small club. He's part of it.
Yep.
And, it's funny because I think a few of them but he'll always be part of it. And the more I think about this movie is that I think it's a movie that's almost unfairly tainted by the movie that follows it.
Yes, I agree. I agree to that.
And we're going to talk about that next week.
Yes, we will.
And I actually have quite a bit to say about it. Because I've been thinking about the movie since we decided upon doing this. But it's an unfairly tainted movie because originally, while it may not have been well received overall, it was a big hit.
Yes, it was.
It was a massive, massive hit.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I think most audience members, outside of critics, did not have a big problem with this movie.
Oh.
And we're going to rewatch it. And I think if you rewatched it, your opinion on it might be different.
It might be. Yeah, so that's the one that we'll talk about next week. We're going to talk about Batman Forever, the first of the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, following the Tim Burton ones, which Tim Burton was executive producer on Batman Forever, but Schumacher directed it. Yeah, so join us next time for Batman Forever.